Thanks, Dr. Lee. Can everybody hear me okay?
Mhm.
Perfect. Thanks for joining us after lunch and get the post-lunch crowd. I'm interested to see what everybody's had for lunch now that we're all working remotely. So put in what you had for lunch in the chat. I'll do the same. You guys will have to come back in a little bit later and see who had the best lunch. Lots of pizza. Awesome. So for those of you like Dr. Ray who haven't had lunch, I think that was Dr. Ray, haven't had lunch, don't look in the chat. We'll wait a little bit. So let me jump over here, share my screen. And the topic, this is actually something that I was going to be doing in the spring, talking about tech tools and in the classroom setting. And I've kind of retooled this for our purposes for everybody who's now teaching remotely, doing remote instruction. And then, just anticipating what are some of the digital tools that whatever fall looks like. I think these are tools that I've purposely selected that I hope they're things that you'll use regardless of what kind of teaching looks like for the fall. And as you're thinking about maybe a course that you want to prepare for online instruction, maybe something you're working on over the summer, then these are some tools that I would encourage you to take a look at. For any staff that are joining you, I do think maybe aside from the first one, that these are tools that you could use for your own purposes as well. So I hope that it's a useful session for anybody, regardless of your background or how you anticipate using the tools. So today, just kind of my goal is that we're going to look at 4 tools. And I don't think that will take the hour, but I'm happy to stick around and talk about other tools or give you some ideas of different tools. So trying to keep it a minimum to just 4 tools. Don't want to overwhelm anybody with a whole barrage of tools, and that can assist in the designing and also really the facilitation of online courses. And then the other learning outcome is really for a chance for you to ask questions, get ideas, explore, and hopefully we'll have a good bit of time after looking at the 4 tools to answer any questions. At any point, let me make sure I can get the chat up as well. So if at any point you've got questions and want to raise a question as I'm going through these, then just feel free to jump in the chat or jump on the microphone, and I'm happy to field questions as we go. So the 4 tools that we're going to be looking at are Canvas Commons, Microsoft Tools, Canva, not to be confused with Canvas, and Loom. And I've picked these primarily for a few different reasons. One is just ease of use, and I think all of these are very user-friendly tools. I really like Canvas. I really like Zoom because they really take that consideration of what is going to be that user experience and keeping things simple. And so I tried to pick tools that I think emulate that same type of experience. The other is support. So certainly Canvas and Microsoft are institutionally supported. So we have access to those through our institution email or through Canvas, through our learning management system. And so having that support, and then I've actually personally reached out to both Canva and Loom when I've had questions, and I've found that they've been highly supportive in the email responses that I get back to them. So that's why I felt comfortable putting those up as well. So Canvas Commons, our first one here, and if you were in any of my sessions around the March 16th timeframe, I mentioned this one. It's one I go back to a lot because it's a great place to start for online course design for using Canvas because you don't have to start from scratch when you're using Canvas. So Canvas Commons is an online repository. You might have seen the button in Canvas and wondered what that is, but it's an online repository, and it allows teachers at any institution that is using Canvas to share materials, whether that's a quiz or a particular module or an entire course. So I've certainly used it in some of the courses that I've developed, and pulled from things that others have developed. And a couple questions that often come up is, well, who can access that? Like if I'm pulling a quiz from there, couldn't students potentially pull that? And one thing I always like to point out is that it's only available for instructors. So instructors are the only ones who see that Commons option. And everything that you add to Canvas Commons, you choose a type of license that is used for that. So it's free to use. They're mostly Creative Commons license. So as you're pulling that into your course, you're kind of bringing in what's required for making sure that you're consistent with copyright related to any of the materials there. So I just want to jump over and show you what that looks like. So in your left-hand navigation, you'll see this option for Commons. And what that's going to do is it's going to pull up a little dashboard, and it will show you kind of some previews of courses or materials that are available. Canvas has kind of featured some of their documents. So using Canvas during a school closure in higher ed, using Mastery Connect, so some of the things that they're promoting. And then you can see, for example, there's a quiz associated with algebra. And obviously Canvas is used as a learning management system at a variety of levels. And so you'll see a lot of these are for kind of the K through 12 experience. But what you can do is over here in the top under filter, you can specifically say, okay, I'm looking for something for my undergrad course, or I'm looking for something for this graduate course I'm teaching. And you can also filter by the type. So are there any courses out there that are you know, a basic mathematics course or a statistics course, or you know, course on pre-1900 America? Just throwing out some ideas of what you might be looking for. So you can search for both courses or maybe just a specific module. So just a chunk, a unit of a course on a specific topic, or a specific quiz or discussion. So I use it just to get ideas of what's out there already, things that, particularly if I have kind of a gen ed course, I think it's really valuable to see what others have already put out there that you can pull into your course. And with just kind of like with anything that you're pulling from internet resources, you can kind of curate that. So you can pull it down, pull it into your course, and then say, okay, I don't really want to use this, or this looks like a really good module, I'm going to keep that. And so that's just a way of utilizing these tools that are already out there. So if you're thinking kind of the daunting task of okay, I've got to design this entire course, and I'm going to do that over the summer, I would say start here and see what resources are already available to you. I will highlight one that I shared. So you can also share courses here. So if you've got something you think is really valuable, you can put it up in Commons for both. You can share that institutionally or broadly to the public. So for example, this is something I shared in Commons that's available to you immediately. And I didn't share this publicly because it's branded with SWU logos and everything, but it's something available to just within our own institution. That's a sample module that you can pull down, and then you've got a sample discussion, sample assignment, and all of those things kind of already built and with some visual elements that I've added in that you can pull into your course. And before you have to actually grab anything, you can preview what it would look like. You can go through all of the different elements. So I can go in and see exactly what that module overview looks like. I can see what, go to the next one, what a reading and explorations page looks like. And then if I think that I like this, so Dr. Lisa had this question, if I think I like this module, what I can do is go over to this import download option and pick out what course I want to pull that in. So I have a course, for example, that's just my kind of test course that I pull everything into, and then I will copy it over to my other courses. So I just select that one and then choose import into course. If you don't have a good place to put your course that you want to pull something from Commons, I direct you, if it's okay, Dr. Lee, to the CTE where they could set up a course where you can pull things down into. And so essentially when I click import download, you're going to get a message that says you've successfully started the import. And then if you go to that course, you should see it start to populate there. Similar to how if you were copying a course from one semester to the next, that same process. One other thing that's nice about this, so you can see if things are very popular with this favorites option or how many people have downloaded. The other thing is if somebody updates a course, so if they've made some changes, they can kind of resubmit that for updates and you get a notification about that as well. Do you want to update this information you've pulled from Commons or do you want to keep it the same? So I think that's a nice feature of, for example, I just made a change to this module today. And so if anybody had already downloaded that, they'll get a little notification. Raul had a great question, and one I wish would be a feature is, do you have to download everything or can you kind of pick and choose? And unfortunately, you do have to download everything. So I've had a couple where I said, this module looks really great out of a whole course. I don't really like this module, so I just download it and then delete the module that I don't want. I think this also works well. You know, there's other ways to do this of sharing between our own faculty of a course you've developed and maybe a fellow faculty members teaching that same course. There's other ways to get that to them, but this is a good way of doing that as well, facilitating that just by adding it to the course. I won't get into how to do that, but if you're interested in putting things in Commons, then reach out. I'd be happy to share how to do that as well. For Deb, for the module, this sample module. So this one, if you go to Commons, you can find it. What I did was I went to Commons and then went to shared, and that will show you anything institutionally that's shared. So you can see this both as a preview, and then you can also pull it down to your course if you'd like. And the rationale for putting this together was something, if you're taking your face-to-face course online, it may have changed how you're using Canvas from kind of more of a repository, putting things in there, and then maybe the gradebook, to actually having a pathway through Canvas. And so that's why I put this module up here as a potential to kind of help set up a pathway that students could go through. I think if it doesn't pop up, you may need to search for it. When I click shared, it's the one result that comes up for me. But let me know if it doesn't come up, or if that's not working, I'm happy to get it to you another way. It may be that I'm only sharing with myself. Okay.
It does not show up.
It does not?
No, I just tried it and it does not.
Okay. Mark, you found it. Maybe share with us how you went about finding it.
I'm not exactly sure. I was just on my laptop, went into Commons, typed in SWU, and there it was.
Okay. So maybe you do need to search. But let me know if you're not finding it and you want access to it. I'm happy to help facilitate getting that another way.
Tyler, I just tried as well. And if you don't have shared selected, if you're just in search but not in shared, and you
Mhm.
blue, it comes up as the first thing. But if you're
Okay.
in shared, it doesn't come up at all.
Okay. Thank you.
I just did the same thing, so that's the way it's working.
All right. Perfect. Thanks for the feedback, everybody. So it looks like for some reason, I'm not sure why it doesn't go to shared. I guess maybe that's my shared. I've just always assumed it was shared with everybody else. But if you search for SWU, I guess it's the first option there. With Microsoft tools, so we have access to Microsoft through our email, and you may already be using a number of Microsoft tools. I just was very pleasantly surprised back earlier this semester at when I went to tools in Microsoft and I clicked on more apps, which I'll show you in a minute, just how many tools that I wasn't aware of and that I probably would be using. So just going to office.com and making sure you're signed in with your SWU email, we have all these apps that are available. Obviously, we're using SharePoint. We're using, a good number of people are using Yammer or Microsoft Teams. So there's a lot of adoption across the institution already. But there's things like scheduling. Certainly, like right now, I'm in the online version of PowerPoint presenting this. So document collaboration, group messaging, even badging. A lot of tools available that are free to us. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of them. So I went into office.com. It asked me to sign into my SWU email. And then it pulled up all the apps, and I'm probably very familiar with the Outlook, Word, Excel, all of these here. But I went to all apps a few months back just to see what was I not thinking of or not aware of that was available with the Microsoft Suite. And really pleasantly surprised with some of them. A couple of them I was familiar with. So for example, I've played around with having students do presentations in Sway as opposed to PowerPoint. It's a little bit more dynamic. I think of it as similar to Prezi, if you're familiar with that tool, but it still keeps the kind of more sequential steps that Microsoft PowerPoint has. So it's not quite as moving around as Prezi, which depending on your feelings about Prezi and those types of movements, I think it's good for drilling down, but sometimes you want to have that linear flow. So Sway is an option. I think it's also easier to add audio and share those within Sway. So that's an option for students to do group projects or to do a narrated PowerPoint, that kind of thing. The other one that really stuck out to me, which I know there's always some hesitation with YouTube, and like if you have a large video you want to share with students, and the recommendation always is don't put that directly in Canvas because it's going to eat up the file size. But Stream is Microsoft's video hosting software. And so you can share videos and put them through Stream and then add a link to that into your course. So it's a great video hosting site. And it actually integrates really well with Teams. Teams is another option like Zoom. And so when you record a team video conference, that recording goes directly in Stream and you get an email notification about it. And for Bruce, I'm going to come back to your question in just a moment. Bruce was asking about badging, and then Priscilla had a great question. So do all SWU students have access to Microsoft tools? And that's a great question. I believe I've certainly had students do Sway. I've had them work in Teams, though it's a little challenging with because our emails are different, because they have the mail.swu.edu versus swu.edu. So there are a couple of things where it's not as easy. And then to Deb's question, if you just go to office.com, that's the way I usually get to all of these. And then even more in these all apps. So I know a few folks have mentioned Flipgrid. So that's an engagement tool with students, something you may want to check out. It's supported as a Microsoft tool and is available here. There's mentioned Stream and Sway. There's Badger, which is a badging tool. So we, with our micro-credential in instructional design, we play around with this in that students get a badge that they can share on LinkedIn for completing a course, but you can also have it at the module level. So that they, when they complete a module or they complete a full course, then they get a badge that they can display as showing some competency or some skill that we would expect from the learning outcome. So our micro-credential instructional design, the end result of that, having the 4 courses, you get a badge that you can share on LinkedIn that's essentially branded as the micro-credential. So there's a lot of tools here, both productivity as well as things you might consider for your class. And so I would just say not to discount what's available to us kind of automatically through our emails, and hopefully for our students as well, that they can access as well. So Dr. Lee just mentioned in the chat that students have access to the same tools. So that is something that you can certainly expect for your students to have access to. Other questions about Microsoft tools? I know we've got several in the Zoom into Spring course, some resources related to Office 365. So if that's something you want to explore more, there's some resources available for that. And Dr. Hammond, I know my graduate students have access to, like, they've done some things in Teams, so they should have access as well. I think the challenge always with any of our students is how often are they using their email, and do they know they can sign into that email to get access to some of these tools? The other tool I wanted to jump into, again, not to be confused with Canvas, but is Canva, canva.com. And this is a graphic design tool. I call it graphic design for non-graphic designers. So if I want to convey a concept or want to put together maybe like an infographic, or just even add a little bit of color to my courses, I usually go to Canva. There's obviously a lot of tools, like if you're familiar with Adobe Photoshop and some of these more advanced tools, there's great options out there. But I think Canva is another one that's just real user-friendly, easy to use, and it's free. I put with an asterisk because they do have some premium, like if you select certain images, you have to pay for those images. There's certain features that require a more than a free account, that require a pro account. And but I've used everything from the free side and haven't run into any issues. Usually if there's some image that I want to use, I'll find something online and import it into Canva. And so it's a good tool just for if you want to put something together for kind of graphically to add to your course.
Might I say something at this point? Illustrator is the real graphic designing one in Adobe Creative Cloud. Photoshop does it, but the fully functional graphic design tool for Adobe Creative Cloud is Illustrator, for those of you who might be interested in Adobe.
Thank you, Lewis. So for Canva, I'm here at the main, I'm already signed in. You can just log in. I think you can log in with a Microsoft account. I've used my Gmail account to log in. And then they have all sorts of templates depending what you want to create. So I've created some posters to advertise for a class. They've started to get into video more, and I haven't explored that much, but you can do all sorts of different designs here. What I use it for primarily, and you'll see here down in the designs, is those tiles when you go into Canvas. I like to put something meaningful for the students to be able to see the title and what the course code is, that kind of information. So I have a tile, and that's based on the specifications from Canvas that I can go in and just add whatever the course is I'm teaching. And then I also create little homepage banners using Canva. So as I open this, I like it's real easy, kind of drag and drop. You can change the fonts, you can change the colors just by clicking on the elements here. There's a lot of templates that exist already, depending on what you want to do. And then you can bring in different images, different elements, text. And then if there's something that you find that you're not finding, for example, they obviously don't have the logo of Southern Wesleyan, so I brought that in. So you can upload different things to get images that you would like to have.
Music?
So I think this is for the video element, and I wasn't aware that they that you could do videos, so I'm gonna have to try that out. But you can, it looks like you can pull in some music, you can pull in certain videos.
Mm-hmm.
So there may be more to Canva, and even getting into some of the tools, the next tool that I'll mention as well that you can do in Canva. If you would like, so Deb had the question, you know, can I use that tile? If you would like a copy of that tile, yes, I'm happy to share those with you. The one thing I think you would need is you need to create a Canva account, and then I can share with you a copy of both this dashboard tile and the homepage banner if you'd like a copy of those. For any of these, so you kind of design how you would like, and then there's an option just to export as an image file. And so then I take that and take it over to Canvas and bring it into my files area and then add it to the course. So here, just choosing publish, and then you can download here. And this is where you'll see, for example, if you want to have a transparent background, that's a pro feature, things like that, that are some limitations of what is available free. But generally, I just consider that in the design elements and then go from there. And then the last one I wanted to look at was Loom. So Loom is free for educators, which they just changed this in response to COVID-19. But what they're saying now is that it's free for educators essentially going forward. So they're not going, it's not just a temporary measure on their part. The only thing is you need to just sign up with your SWU email address so that they know it's an educator requesting. And then you have a pro account with Loom. So Loom is for video engagement. And the way I use it is if I'm doing something that's short term that I know is just for that class, I'm going to use the Canvas tools. So in the announcement in Canvas or in certain areas, you can click record and record a video to have available for your students directly in Canvas. And that's typically, I'll use that because I know I'm going to do it one time. I'm probably not going to use that video again. And so that's perfect for my needs. If I have a concept that I know is something that students continually are asking about, this one assignment or this one concept, or just want to provide that in something that's a little bit more long-term, I've been using Loom a lot more for that lately. It's just another tool out there. Like if you've used Screencast-O-Matic, that's a great tool. There's all sorts of tools for creating these videos that are available out there. But Loom, I think, again, is one that I just found very user-friendly. and I found good support for it as well. Let me see. Actually, well, I think before I sign into my account, just show you the home screen. It has some, it actually can be done on a mobile device as well as on Mac and Windows. If you have Google Chrome, there's an extension for that. I was checking this morning to see if any other browsers had an extension. I think it's only Chrome. So there's an extension for Loom with Google Chrome, but any others, you can use a browser. So it works for any other browser type to do directly in your desktop. And I think one of the reasons I like it, for some of the more robust video options, you have to bring the video down onto your computer, do the editing there. And with Loom, you can do it all from a browser. So it's really nice for just doing short videos on the go, creating something and then getting it into your online course. And if I go to my account, so it has, similar to what you might find on YouTube or some of the other features, you can see how many people have viewed, what the engagement, you get some statistics there. And you can also do some basic trimming and editing as well. So it's not as robust as some of the other tools out there, but you can at least do some very basic edits. And then you can either directly share the link from Loom into a Canvas course. So if you want to keep it here, that's fine. Or we were talking about Stream in Microsoft. If you want something that you think, I want this to be a little bit more permanent, you can download from Loom and add it to Stream as well. So there's a few different options there. I've kept some of these, like I was giving APA feedback to a course. I've just kind of kept that in Loom and shared the link directly to them. Others I've downloaded and put elsewhere, just depending on how often I think I will use that video. And if I click, if I want to create a new video, so I can do screen only, I can do a webcam only, or I can do both. And I like, I think just kind of from looks and design, it's a little circle down here if it's the webcam, and kind of a little bit more unobtrusive than some of the other options out there for doing video. And then you just hit start recording and you can see the video immediately after it's done and do some minor edits and then publish. And there's some pretty good features in terms of how you make it available to folks. So you can invite people, you can add a password. And then as folks are watching, they can also react to it. There's also this call to action, similar to what you might see in a YouTube video, where you can point students to something you want them to look at as a result of what they're looking in the video. So a lot of the same tools you might see in other platforms, but I think just real user-friendly interface to kind of interact with videos. So if it's something you've kind of said, I don't think I can get into making a video for my class, I would say the starting point, probably Canvas and doing some short videos in there. And then maybe exploring Loom for something that you want to do that's a little bit more long lasting. Dr. Knight had the question about streaming, space in Stream. And I'm not sure the answer to that. I remember looking when I first looked at it, and I was pleasantly surprised with the amount, but I'm not sure exactly what that amount is. For Deb, your question about YouTube versus Loom versus these other tools, I think it's just your comfort level. I put a lot of stuff on YouTube and I have it unlisted. And I know that generally speaking, it's going to be just for those students, but that link, that link could travel. And just like Zoom, where we had people just putting in random Zoom links and being able to access that. Those unlisted links are out there. Not to say that that's a security issue or anything, but just that depending how comfortable you are with putting something in YouTube versus where I think Loom, you can have that password protection. Stream, I think, is probably the most secure because it's within the Microsoft environment. So there's some more features you can add there. So I think it's more about comfort level in terms of the security, and then ease of use. I think YouTube is pretty user friendly once you get a video there, but it's limited in terms of editing a video or making modifications. And that's where I think Loom can kind of bridge that gap. To Dr. Lee's question about recording lectures, yes, I think it would work for that. There's no limitation on the time for the pro accounts. I think the big thing I would always recommend is just be mindful of what you want to convey to students and the length of time that they'll watch a video and remain engaged with that. I'm not sure, there's a lot of tools out there where you can put checkpoints along the way. And I'm not sure with Loom, I haven't tried this to see if you can put those call outs throughout the video, but there's a number of tools where you can kind of have questions pop up along the way to keep students engaged with the video and kind of break up those lectures. So that's something I'm happy to provide some resources if that's another question that comes up from folks. So those were the 4 tools. We've got some time if you wanted me to look at anything in more depth, or if you had questions or other suggestions I have. I did want to pull up the last slide here. So at any point, during the summer, if you're working on a course and have questions, I'm more than happy to field emails or jump on a Zoom session and just talk about your course and what you're planning, what you'd like to do. We're developing something, it's more for our program to encourage educators wherever they are to really be thinking of, okay, I got past this term and remote instruction went okay, or it went great, or it went not so great, but I know I need to be starting to think about what the fall is going to look like. And so we pulled some elements from some of the program courses for our MED program into just a 3-module, taking that from remote instruction to online learning. So it's real quick, self-paced information, but that's something I've put a link here in this page. I can grab that and put it in the chat as well if you want to take a look at that. But that's something that I'm going to be pushing out for educators just around as a tool for them, but also as a promotion for our program. But it's certainly available for any of you who want to take a look at that as well. And yes, Dr. Hammond, I had the same experience. I had a Google account with Loom, and I just went in and changed my email, and it automatically made it a pro account. So they've got something in there that is picking those up. So if you just change to your SWU email if you already have one, or sign up with your SWU email, it will allow you to have the pro feature of Loom. Dr. Lee had a question about the modules. So we've got one all about mapping out a course. We've got a couple folks who went through one of the first courses in the micro-credential, which is all about course mapping and course design and a backwards design process. So that first one pulls from elements of that course and talks about mapping out the course. The second one talks about instructional technology and how to consider what to use and some of the questions you need to be asking before selecting a tool, and then talking about engagement. Dr. Deb, yes, I think either just we could meet, or certainly if there's enough interest in talking about grabbing images and videos and adding them to a course, I'm happy to walk through that and kind of my process as well.
And Tyler and everyone, the goal with the shell, the training shell, is that we continuously add items that you're interested in. So if there's something that you want to learn more about, like if you want to learn more about certain tools that Tyler's talking about, we can see if he can do some quick videos to help train or share very easily with you how to utilize some of those tools to just better impact your instructional techniques and to better engage with students virtually if that's something that you want to learn more about. So just let us know, because the goal is to have an ongoing resource library for everyone that includes multiple types of training and resources.
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
My generous benefactor statement. Dr. Lee helped us build the new facility, the new digital media center. So of course, Tyler knows this, but if anybody wants to do a video, needs a green screen behind them, just wants to shoot a video, we have, that is a community space. So I'm there to help you as well if you need some help producing videos or graphics or any of the other things. Tyler has the knowledge of how it works with CTE, but I've made a video or two, so I can be helpful in that regard.
Dr. Moore wants to know if he can bring his snakes to the studio, Dr. Knight.
I love snakes.
One I'll share in the chat as Dr. Lee was speaking, it made me think, so this could be an example of Loom, but also it's one I made for another faculty member, was just what are some of the things I do, very basic HTML in Canvas to get things looking visually pleasing. So that can serve as two purposes of one resource for you, but also maybe a chance to take a look at Loom and what that looks like.
Also,
I'm sorry.
Oh, excuse me. I was just going to say, for those of you who don't know, or if I did not mention it, all of these sessions are being recorded and will be available for you to look at again. So if there's something that you thought later on you say, oh, I remember Tyler said something about that, you can just access the shell, the training shell, click on it, and you'll have access to his video. So all of the trainings today are being recorded, and you will have ongoing access to that and the links and resources that are available as well.
If we go to the Loom site there, we will be able to access all of those videos you have just showed us on that screen.
Just that one that I shared in the chat. I think that's the only one you'd be able to access.
Oh, okay.
But if you want to see any of the others, I'm happy to share those as well.
Okay, thank you.
If no other questions, I guess Dr. Lee, is the next session at, is it 2 o'clock?
Yes. Can I ask an unrelated question to what we just did? It has to do with video. I had to share a bunch of videos with my students who are putting together athletic highlight reels for SD Eckert. And so, as you know, I filled up that class's files with these videos, and I went to delete them. I can only delete them one at a time. I can't delete them a folder at a time. And there are a ton of videos in there. Is there a way to delete an entire folder? I couldn't find it.
This is in Canvas?
In Canvas, yes. In my course, my values studio production class, I loaded up the files. You know, I could select a ton of files and hit load, and it loads them all up at once.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't select a bunch of files and delete them all at once. Only one at a time.
I thought there was a way to delete a folder, but let me double check. I can follow up on that and shoot you an email, Dr. Knight.
That would be great. Thanks.
Sure.
Tyler, can I ask one question, which is also unrelated, but I use conferences in Canvas to record my lectures for online students, but it lasts only 14 days. For those students who wants to replay after 14 days for their like finals or midterm exams, they lose everything. Like they don't have access to it. So is there any way that we can have the recorded conferences for the rest of the duration of the course, or just for 7 weeks instead of just 14 days?
Are you asking if students can have access to a course long-term once they complete it?
No, the recorded conference. I record the conferences like in Canvas. There's a like Zoom like a meeting, which is a conference. I record it when I have a lecture on online conference, live conference. I record it for those who wants to replay after my lecture is done. So like, let's say I recorded it for the first week, and some students, they want to replay like for the final after like 5 weeks or 6 weeks. But the recorded conference lasts only 14 days. So after 2 weeks I recorded, it's erased, it deletes itself. So they don't have access, I don't have any access to it. So is there any way that the recorded conference can last about 7 weeks for the duration of our course?
Tyler, I'm going to defer that to you.
I think it would be something we would have to ask our Canvas support rep, because I was just looking at the documentation for it, and it says there isn't a way to download it, and it is 14 days and then removes it. At least this Canvas's standard recording feature is 14 days. So I don't know if there's a non-standard option as well, but maybe have to follow up with the Canvas side.
The non-standard option would be to record and upload it to your own YouTube account, or put it in a Microsoft Tools account like you were showing us somewhere there, and then put a link in your course to that video so that they're actually leaving Canvas to view that. Because I've done videos in YouTube and then uploaded them into an announcement. But when you click on that, it does take you outside the course. And I think that's the biggest difference, is if you do conference with Big Blue Button, it's resides within the course. But you can also embed the YouTube video. So if you wanted to do it that way, you could record YouTube and embed it. But anyway.
Yeah, I use the embed so this way it doesn't leave your site.
Right.
The difference though is that when you're recording in Canvas, when you're recording a conference, you're recording interactions with the students, their chats, and their questions to your presentation and so on. I think the alternative is to use Zoom. Zoom will allow you to download it into your computer, but Big Blue Button doesn't have that facility.
But the Zoom gives you only like 40 minutes. But my lecture is easier. It go over like 1 hour or sometimes an hour and a half.
Yeah, then I think I have been using the common account, the School of Business account, when I do Zoom, because like my lectures go over 40 minutes. So that one, there's no limit on how long you can make a recording.
Okay.
And Tyler, was it Sway that you said records videos and integrates well with Canvas?
Teams, actually.
Oh,
So
with Teams.
Teams, they actually, it's, if you're familiar with WebEx, Microsoft purchased WebEx and integrated with Teams. And we have that integration in Canvas that if you, like, I think if you go to any place where that editor is, if you click on the little, there's a little drop down arrow, I think you can see Microsoft Teams. So that's another option where no limitation in time, and it will download it to stream, or you could download from there. So that's another option. And I think actually one of the Loom videos, I walk through that process. So I'm happy to, I'll review that and share with anybody who's interested. Just let me know.
I have
And
to
then,
tell you, in Teams as well, it allows you to create channels. So for a particular class, you could set up a channel for that class, lecture number 1, blah, 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 whatever that lecture was. And the students can easily navigate to that particular video on that channel. And it's very cool. Teams is very cool.
There's a session in the shell, some videos, 2 videos. One is an overview of Teams, and the other is some nifty tricks that you can use in Teams. So you may want to click on that when you have a moment and take a look at that. That would be a good resource as well.
Those videos are very comprehensive. They really give you a good lesson in Teams.
well, Dr. Lee, I think, is it 2 o'clock? Is that right for the next session?
And I saw something in the chat that said to store a file more than 14 days, you need to have a Premier account from Big Blue Button. And yes, the next session is at 2 o'clock, which would give you a 30-minute break. Do you want to take a break, or do you want to just like keep going? It's like when I said that, all the screens just froze. I think you probably want a break. So thumbs up if you want break until 2. Oh, I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up. Oh yeah, okay. It's break time. Grab some coffee, some soft drinks, a snack, and we'll see you back at 2 o'clock. We'll put some reminders on the screen so you don't forget. See you at 2.
Dr. Lee, I have a Zoom meeting with the President's Gala at 2. I can't make. I've made every class so far. Can't make that one.
Well, I don't know what you're going to do. You need to be here. No, I'm kidding. I understand. That's fine, Louis.
Tyler, thank you. That was excellent.
That was excellent. Thank you so much, Tyler. I hope that you've gotten a lot out of the presentations today, but we still have more good stuff to come. So see you at 2. Well, welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your break.
Hi there.
I'm going to give everybody a minute or so to get back in place. Okay, we're going to stay on schedule, and I think we're ready to move into the next presentation. The next person needs no introduction. She's not new to SWU, but we all know her and love her, even though she's left the faculty to move over into another position where she is as phenomenal in that position as she was as a faculty member. The good thing about her switch is she's over here in the library with me, and I do get to see her sometimes. I am so pleased to introduce, or should I say present, Emily Germain. She is so phenomenal with working with the students. I have to tell you the story. I was teaching seminar 2323, and I ran into one of my students, and I said, you know, you were running a little bit late today. And he said, yeah, I was in Bible study. I said, Bible study? Where? He said, with Emily Germain. She has Bible study with some of us, some of the athletes. And he said, you want to come? And I said, wow, yeah, that sounds awesome. You talk about going above and beyond. Emily is always talking to me about ways to better track students and make sure that the athletes are academically successful. So I'm so happy to have her here to talk to you about ways that we can all work together to ensure that our students are successful. So without any further ado, I am going to introduce to none, but present to all our very own Emily Germain.
Thanks, Karen. I appreciate that. I had some technical difficulties getting set up, so I want to make sure you're able to hear me. Okay, audio is good. Okay. So I appreciate you guys being willing to let me come back and join faculty training, even though I have gone over to the dark side of athletics. But yeah, as Karen said, I transitioned to this new role starting in August. So for some of you that don't know me, I think some of our affiliate may not even understand my role, but I have served the university for the last 10 years as a faculty member in the psychology department. And then this past year switched over and I'm now one of the assistant athletic directors in our athletic department. And so kind of what my session today is going to be geared towards is just to kind of give you guys an idea of some of the things that we're trying to do in athletics to support the mission of the university, specifically to educate students. And so that's kind of what I want to walk you all through today. If there's questions as I go along, just to me, the easiest way to do that is to either hit the raise your hand or type a message in the chat. I've got both of those pulled up so that hopefully that will allow me to kind of see that stuff as they pop up. So that's probably the easiest way, but don't hesitate to just hop in, unmute, and interrupt me. There's no formality to this. I'm just mostly going to kind of talk through some of the things that we do. And so feel free to just sort of stop me if you got any questions. The first thing I kind of want to do before launching into policies and systems that we use in athletics is just to clarify for you guys, because some of you may not understand the nature of this new role that I've shifted into. So we were awarded a grant from the NCAA that supports women and minority leadership in athletics. And so that's sort of the nature of how I transitioned over into this role as a female administrator. And so the long title that came about because we submitted it as a grant to the NCAA, and those of you that have worked with grants, you understand that sometimes the longer the better. So the technical title for my role is Assistant Athletics Director for Academics and Community Engagement. The reason that's important to me, even though it's long, is it's not my job. It's not just academics. It's academics and community engagement. And for me, what that looks like is some mental health counseling It means community service. I supervise our student athlete leadership group. As Karen mentioned, I'm doing some things like some Bible studies and things like that. So while a large portion of my time is academic, there are some other things that are involved under this role. I previously served as the faculty athletics representative. Joe Crosby is now serving in that role. Thankfully, Joe was willing to sort of step in as I transitioned over. And so to kind of clarify, for those of you that maybe don't know the difference between those two roles, so Joe is full-time faculty. His role exists as an NCAA mandated position, number one, as a liaison between academics and athletics, but also to provide accountability oversight for athletics as it relates to student athletes. So that position is a direct report to the president so that we can make sure that both parties are sort of walking the line that they're supposed to walk in terms of following NCAA rules and expectations. So that's Joe's role. In addition, large policies related to student athlete and academics, engagement with all faculty or divisions, that kind of stuff falls to Joe, whereas my role is a little bit more day-to-day. So I have student athletes in my office. We're going through classes, assignment by assignment. My job is more academic monitoring, interacting maybe with individual faculty on an individual level, as opposed to more global policies and things of that nature. If you enter an alert in Dropout Detective, if you go in and submit an alert on a student, I am one of the people that will get that, and in all likelihood will be sort of the first to respond to that. And so that's the day-to-day piece really falls under me. The reason I want to take a second and just sort of clarify that at the outset is because I want faculty to understand that my role is to serve and support what you're doing on a daily basis in the classroom. And so if you have a question, an issue, a concern, I am a quick, easy touch point for that. It is my job to literally chase student athletes down and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. So several of you kind of get that and understand that. I see Mike's laughing. We just had an issue with an athlete yesterday. And it's as easy as Mike sends me a quick email and says, hey, I think they maybe forgot to turn this in. And I send a quick text and she says, oh my gosh, I shut my computer down because I thought I had turned everything in and I forgot to submit that one assignment. She had done it. She just forgot to turn it in. So within about 30 minutes, we got somebody back on track. Most of the time, it's a quick resolution. Sometimes it's a firm, hard conversation that I'm having, and they walk out of my office probably a little bit peeved at me, but better at me than at you. So just wanted to clarify that. I've talked to a couple of faculty this semester who've said things like, man, I didn't realize your role exists. I didn't even know you did this. And so I guess kind of right out of the gates, I just want to make it clear. I see myself as a support to what you guys are trying to do in the classroom. And so if you ask and I can't help or I don't think I should help, I'll tell you, but otherwise don't hesitate to ask and to come to me. Some of you guys have been involved in the interview process, as we've just recently named Julia Reiniger as the new director of athletics, which we in athletics are very excited about. I think that's absolutely the right fit, and Julia is the right person for the job. And so we're excited about just sort of a freshness that I think is going to blow through the department. But to clarify some things that Julia said in her interview that some of you guys maybe couldn't hear because you weren't able to be a part of that. But we in athletics absolutely believe that Southern Wesleyan first and foremost exists to point people to Jesus. And so we think that that is the mission of the university. Secondary to that, the mission of the university is to educate young people and equip them to head out into a career. Athletics is one of many venues that exist to support those two missions. Julia said that in her interview. We absolutely believe it in the athletics department. And so I just want to make sure that you guys understand that that's sort of our vision for what we do. We take that very seriously. Some of you guys are more connected with athletics than others, and you realize athletics is involved from day one in the recruitment process and working with admissions and then working with advisors and helping to get student schedules built, getting kids through classes, getting kids into graduation, getting them connected with career services, trying to help them find jobs. And so when you look at athletics department and the coaching staff, I hope what you see is a consistent touch point for your students from the moment they hear about SWU to the moment they leave and hopefully go get a job representing SWU. And we exist to sort of support the overall mission of the university. So specifically then, what are some things that we're doing to try to support what you guys are doing in the classroom? And the reason that I want to walk through this is I think what I have found is as I've articulated this over the last year to faculty, and I said, hey, here's what we're trying to do. I've seen a lot of light bulb moments for faculty to go, oh, well, if you're trying to do this, what if I did this? And we start to put the dots together. And so rather than it feeling like we're moving in opposite directions, and we're trying to do one thing to help you, and you're trying to do another thing, and we end up fighting each other almost, both with the right intentions. I feel like it helps if I clearly articulate, here's kind of the things that we do to try to support academics, and here's why certain pieces of information or systems are helpful for us from you. I am by no means issuing requirements that any of this be done. So this, I don't want anybody to hear this as sort of a mandate that this is how you have to do it. What my goal here today is simply to say, listen, here's what we're trying to do, and here's how we can collaborate better. If you see a way that that works in your structure in your classroom and in the way you do advising, awesome. If it doesn't work, ultimately it's your classroom. These are your students. You do it the way that works best for you. All right, so a couple of things that we do in order to support what you do in the classroom. First and foremost, we do weekly attendance and grade reports. And I've found that many faculty don't realize that this is happening. So what this means is that every week, usually by Monday sometimes, depends on what the week looks like, but usually sometimes on Monday, I will get a full grade and attendance report sent to me from the provost. It is every single student athlete and every class they are listed in and every grade they have in every class. And then another page on that spreadsheet is every athlete in every class they're in, whether they were marked present, late, or absent for those classes. So you can imagine how large that is, 300 student athletes times 5 to 6 classes per student. It's pretty large. Mondays, I tend to geek out when I get that spreadsheet. I'm a closet Excel monster nerd. And so I'll go into hibernation and I'll turn that into a report for our coaches. What that means is usually by Tuesday at noon, every coach has a detailed report of any athletes that have below a 70 in a class and any athlete that has excessive absences. Now, what excessive means depends on the class, right? How many times a week the class meets, where we are in the semester. So 3 absences in April are not concerning. 3 absences in the second week of January are. So basically, I use my intuition and set a cutoff number depending on where we are in the semester. I do have it set up to automatically pull whether or not the class meets 1, 2, or 3 times a week. So there might be an occasion where if you have some different arrangement and your class is meeting more or less than what's sort of written in the course schedule, that might be a little bit wonky. But generally speaking, it will tell a coach, hey, they've missed 4 and they're allowed 7 in this class. That goes out to every single coach every week. So it's not every kid on their roster because honestly, about 60% of our athletes are crushing it. We don't even, they kind of are on autopilot, but it tells them these are the ones that have below 70s. These are the classes they have a below a 70 in. These are the classes that they have an attendance problem in. All right. So that's the first piece of information that goes out. The second thing that we're doing to try to support what you guys are doing in the classroom is that we monitor alerts. So like I said before, in Dropout Detective, I get an email as soon as you guys turn in an alert on a student athlete. And then I am also working with Karen over the summer to get coaches added in on Dropout Detective under their athletes so that not only do I get that alert, but their coach sees it as well. And we try to take pretty quick action on that. And so that's the second piece of us trying to support what you guys are doing. And then the third thing, this is more programming rather than reporting. So many of you guys are aware we started the PASS program about 6 or 7 years ago. For those of you that are new, the PASS program is simply a supervised study hall program for student athletes that have demonstrated either poor academic performance in the previous semester. So their semester GPA was below a 2.0, which tells me something's happening, or their cumulative overall GPA is below a 2.3. So they're either a shaky student across the board, or they just had a bad previous semester, in which case we need to get them in and get the ship righted. That has historically looked like 5 hours a week of supervised study hall. As I've transitioned into this role, we've been able to do a lot more targeted one-on-one interventions in that. So I've been able to really drill down. Our students trending upward, and they're doing pretty good, and they might even be able to mid-semester graduate out of PASS, or are they trending downward and we need to start mandating tutoring or meeting with a professor or something like that. So we've had that added in this year. The other thing we've added in this year is a lot more one-on-one, what I call PASS coaching. So I have graduate students from Clemson University who are in the graduate program in student affairs, and they want to end up working in student development. And so they have been paired with usually about 3 to 5 student athletes that they meet one-on-one with every week. The rest of them that are in the PASS program come and meet with me every week. And what we're doing is we're sitting down with them and making a weekly success plan that's specific to that student athlete. And so we're not just saying, come in here, spend 5 hours a week in study hall, but we're literally sitting down with each student individually and saying, all right, what assignments do you have due this week? As a part of that meeting, those students have to record, they have to write down what their grades are in every single class. Not because we can't see them, but because I want them to look at them. You guys may be surprised to know how much of the time they just stick their head in the sand. So you're thinking, I can't believe this kid isn't freaking out. They're failing their classes. The reality is they don't look at it. If they think it's bad, they just quit going into Canvas and looking at grades. And so I make them look at their grades. We cry about it together. And then I dry their crocodile tears and we make a plan to get better. And so that every week also involves them signing at the bottom of that piece of paper a commitment to give their best. So it explains that hard work is important and that we aren't going to do this for them. And I tell them, if you can't sign and commit to doing your best, don't sign it. But I want to know where your head is this week. And every single week we revisit that same piece of paper. Again, my goal is to begin to train them to be more accountable and more individual in their approach to their academics. However, they're in the PASS program because they haven't mastered that. And so there is some hand-holding that happens at the beginning, but my goal in that is to start to transition them to more independent student status. So they're not needing me to make them a weekly success plan. So while the first few weeks I might make that, as we transition, the next few weeks, I might have them come into my office and make the plan with me, but they're writing it all down. And then maybe we move, okay, you work on your plans and I won't see you but every 2 weeks. And let's just watch your grades and make sure they stay up. And again, the goal is slowly creating some autonomy in them. I do not want to handhold a student for 8 semesters. And frankly, if I've handheld them for 8 semesters, it's probably more like 10, 11 anyway. So I don't want to create a problem where I am the source of their knowledge, but we do create a lot of accountability. If they fall in a hole, they're going to be in my office a lot until they can demonstrate their ability to kind of get back out of that. All right. So I know that's a lot of information, but I want to make sure you guys understand from our side what we're trying to do to support what's going on in the classroom that you guys are doing. I know I talk fast, so I want to pause for just a second and ask if there are any questions before I sort of talk about the other side, which is what you can do to help us. So just speak over at the chat.
And let me just make a quick comment. When Emily said that we were going to work with the coaches, what she was talking about was setting up dashboards. And that's very consistent with what we were learning about and talking about earlier, so that we can all kind of be on the same page with monitoring academic success.
Yeah, hopefully, I'm hoping that if we get into those dashboards, that everything can be a little bit more real time. And coaches won't need me to send them as much information because they'll be able to start accessing some of that information. Right now, I'm kind of a conduit for everything, which I don't mind. But as you imagine, it does sort of slow the process down a little bit. All right, well then, seeing no hands raised or chats popping up, for all I know, you guys are like slipping into comas at home. I mean, it's 2:19. You probably got Judge Judy on in the background. It's cool. I understand. Oh, there's a blurry Walt and a pump Brent. I like seeing everybody's home office setup. It kind of gives you a sense of what people's lives are like. It's like, oh, okay, that's what your life looks like at home. All right, so then let me talk about the backside here. So here's how what you guys are doing in your classroom, specifically kind of in the way that you do Canvas and advising, that can begin to kind of help support what we're doing. So first of all, the first thing I would say is orienting your students to Canvas. All right. And this one's going to seem like a no-brainer, and you're going to have a temptation to kind of breeze past it. Students often do not understand that they can go in and customize their notifications in Canvas. All right. So whatever the default package is, they may have that and not even know that they can go in and customize that. So what I mean by orienting your students, if you are the kind of professor that likes to use announcements, that's how you get most of your information out, is through announcements. On day one, when you go through the syllabus, if you wouldn't mind taking a second to click over to settings, showing them notifications and saying, make sure yours is switched to the instant I post an announcement, you get a notification. If they have that turned off, you might be sending announcements out all the time and they don't even see them. All right. And I know for us, because we spend so much time on the back end of Canvas that we forget what the student view looks like. This year, that has been the biggest thing I have noticed, is when I have students come in and sit down and they pull up Canvas and I begin to watch how they engage with Canvas, I see it completely differently than I did as the last 6 or 7 years as a faculty member using it. Things that are like, I don't know why they didn't see that. I see now why they didn't see that. And so that's the first thing, is just orient them to your usage in Canvas and make sure those particular notifications for them are turned on. Yes, Paul Schleifer, I see that hand.
Just curious, why is that the default? Why isn't the default that all levels of activity give them a notification?
Like I said, I don't know what the default setting is. And I don't know.
Check on that, Emily.
Yeah, so it might be worthwhile. The other thing I have found, Paul, is that they're like us in that information overload they begin to ignore over time. And so I could see instances where they got information that felt irrelevant to them. Either they were enrolled in Canvas classes that they didn't want announcements about, or, well, I don't even know why students sometimes might turn notifications on or off. They might not, they may be in a class and they go, I don't know why I'm getting all these Canvas notifications. Go through, click them all off and not realize it. And then the next semester start a class with a different professor. Like, for instance, I never use announcements. That's just not a means I have used to communicate. So, a student might have turned those off. So I'm not saying it necessarily is the default setting, but just something like that to make sure that you orient them, because they may have it turned off. And also, just what is your means of communication? So if you're going to communicate primarily through the Canvas inbox, or are you going to communicate primarily through announcements, just let them know so that they know, hey, I need to be checking here regularly. Because what I have found as I sit down, I might sit down with 10 different students in a given day, and I say, okay, pull up Canvas. And we start clicking through classes, 10 students times 5 classes, so 50 Canvas experiences. There might be 7 different permutations of what that looks like. So the only thing you're familiar looking at in Canvas is the way you set your classes up, but you might click over to a colleague and go, oh, wow, my class doesn't look anything like that. And again, that's not my realm to sort of discuss. All I'm saying is just kind of being mindful from the student perspective. Not everybody's Canvas class looks like yours. So spending some time to orient them. If you need to access an assignment, this is where you go to get it. For some of you, you click on the assignment. For others, you click on the syllabus. For others, you go into files and you find the assignment name and you click on it. That's 3 different places to go look for an assignment description, depending on who the teacher is. So just a few minutes to orient them to your Canvas. Number 2, putting as much of your course content as possible in Canvas as early as possible. All right. And examples of what I mean by course content, due dates, first and foremost. All right. So my preference would be that due dates would at least be in Canvas for the upcoming month, for at least a month ahead. Here's why that's important. I don't know if you guys realize how much students use the to-do bar. So, you know, when we log into Canvas, it shows us to do on the right-hand side, and it's all the things that we need to grade. For them, to do is all the things that they need to submit. I have had so many students say to me, no, and they'll turn their phone around or they'll turn their computer around and they'll say, see, there's nothing in my to-do list. Now, I am not saying that that excuses them from going through the syllabus, understanding their assignments. Like, I want you to hear me. I still have an expectation that they learn how to do that. But a couple of years ago, I sat in one of these trainings, and I believe it was Kent Ellison who said this to me, and this really resonated. If my goal as an educator is to make sure a student learns the information, I don't ask them to come into my office and say, your test is in here somewhere, find it. Right? Like, I want to make it as accessible to them as possible, because what I really want them to do is take the test to see how well they're doing. But if they're spending a lot of their time hunting for the test, I say, you have an hour to take it. You better find it. It's in a filing cabinet in here. Like, we would all laugh, like that's ludicrous. But when we think about how we set up Canvas, sometimes we say things like, well, it's in there, they can find it. I think if there's an easy way for us to make sure that the information stays in front of them, we need to sort of wrestle with that at least have it on your radar. If you want to make an informed decision that says, no, I'm not going to do that, okay, then my request would be, go back to number one in that orienting your students to your class, say to them, all of your assignments are in the syllabus, it's up to you, you better make your own personal calendar. That's fine if that's what you want to do. The reason I say the due dates thing, the other reason it helps me. So like I told you guys, we do those weekly success plans. So I have a student athlete sit down and I say to them, what do you have to do this week? And they're in my office, so they're not our sharpest students, right? And so they shrug, I don't know, I may have an English paper. Okay, so we start clicking through their classes. It's really helpful for me if I click on, let's say, assignments for English, and I see every assignment that's due with a due date, because then I can help them plan their time. If there's no due date and I say to them, well, when is this due? I think she said in class it was due on Friday, or maybe she pushed that back. So now I'm relying on a not strong student to report what they audibly remember a professor saying a couple days beforehand. Then we click over to the syllabus. I'm hunting. Sometimes there's due dates because some of you guys like to put your due dates in your syllabi. Others of you say, I'm not going to put due dates in my syllabus because I want the flexibility to kind of be able to go with the flow. Canvas is live. You can slide an assignment over 2 days if you want to push it back. And that way everybody's on the same page. So when I'm sitting down working with students, and again, part of my job is to teach them to begin to be more proactive instead of reactive. So what I'm trying to teach them to do is like, hey, if you don't have anything due in the next 4 days, that doesn't mean you coast. What do you have due in the next 10 days? Because don't forget, you got an away match this weekend and you're going to be gone for 3 days. Don't you want to kind of get ahead on your homework? I can't help them think proactively, learn to plan, learn to be a little bit more mindful of their schedule. If when we go into Canvas, there's assignments, but we don't really know when they're due. And I realize a lot of you guys are announcing this stuff in class, but again, I'm just explaining as a support staff person who's trying to kind of walk alongside these students and help them find success. Due dates would be awesome. If you can't put them in there, for the whole semester, which would be awesome. That would be ideal, because then I can look at what final papers are due at the end, all that kind of stuff. If you can't do that because you're building a new course, you got a lot on your plate, at least give me a couple of weeks to work with. That is so much more helpful. Patty asks, are they pulling up their syllabi when you're with them? They don't start there. So I start them there.
I'm
So
going to unmute Emily because
Yeah.
I know we've probably had some discussion, but my homepage has the syllabus on it. And so the
Right.
minute they click up, they have to see the syllabus. So that was what was confusing to me, is that if you're opening mine, they should immediately see the syllabi with the dates and everything. All of it says tentative, of course, because we know how semesters can go. But one of the things is I just wasn't sure, what exactly, because, I talk to them and we all talk. I think everybody tries to orient as much as we can. I do orientations with exercise science coming in and even mentoring with the ones who've been with me for a while, to have freshmen to be there for them and stuff. But I do, I do wonder about, because you're talking about loading all this stuff, but the truth is, if your syllabi has it, they should be able to pull that syllabi up and look at it immediately.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't disagree with that philosophy at all. Here's the thing that I am finding, in particular for freshmen.
Okay.
So freshmen, think like it's hard for us to remember what it was like. And clearly we all are academically inclined because we chose careers in academia. So you're a non-academically inclined 18-year-old, and I'm going to make you a boy because we know the 18-year-old boy brain is a little bit behind. Okay. So you're 18 years old. You just moved 4 hours away. Your parents just moved you in. The chaos of all of that just happened. You're stressed out and terrified about starting college. Oh yeah. And you're an athlete. So you're on a new team and you're trying to get into workouts and you're worried you're not going to measure up and all that. And then you go to your first day of classes, which for some of these kids is 3 classes one day, maybe 2 or 3 another day. And it is information overload. They don't even know what a syllabus is. They don't know, like, it's the first time they're seeing any of this, and they've missed that first day. And I found for a lot of them that because they've missed that, they don't do a great job then of going back to the things that we said on the first day. So absolutely, like, I know it's on,
Right.
It's on your homepage. What I do when
I bring it back up though.
Yeah,
I keep
and
telling them, I try to remind them because I get where you're coming from.
yeah,
But
and that's
accountability too is another thing that I want them to recognize, that, I'm going to try to give you a heads up. I'm an announcement person. So it was very interesting because one of the athletes, one of mine, he's like, I didn't see this. I'm like, how can you not see announcements? And it was very clear that he is not getting those. And I did not realize students could not see certain things. So yeah, I want to check into why that may be happening, because announcements to me should never be blocked, no matter what the circumstances. And that's why I'm confused on
and
Canvas.
whether or not they get an email when they get an announcement, or whether they get a text message when they get an announcement. Like they can control it may be in Canvas, but they're just not getting the notification. Yeah, and I want to be clear. I want to create accountability. Trust me, I do not want to create a system where we are enabling these kids at all. So the very first thing I do when they sit down in my chair and I say, okay, what's going on in English? The first thing I do is I say, pull up the syllabus. Pull up the syllabus. One of the things that we worked on this year was creating file folders on their OneDrive for each class so that all of their assignments got saved in the same place, because you guys would not believe the fruit basket turnover that their computers are. It's just like assignments everywhere. And that's why they submit the wrong thing for the wrong class, because they just call it paper. And so working through that, part of that was download the syllabus, save it to the file for that class. So I promise I am pushing them back to the syllabus as much as I can. And that's why I started by saying, listen, if you're a syllabus person, great. If you're willing to consider also putting in due dates so it pops up in the to-do list, that makes it a little bit easier. But from a philosophical standpoint, I understand why some people say, nope, I want them to learn some accountability with the syllabus. I also interact much differently with my freshmen than I do like the juniors. So I'm going to have a different level of conversation with a junior than I'm going to have with a freshman. Just checking. Okay. All right. So yes, good points on that. And yeah, again, I want to be really clear, defaulting to you guys, what works for your teaching style, the way that you want to develop your students. Absolutely. Yeah. So work within that. Another piece along those lines, and this is kind of going to be probably a similar concept as to the syllabus and the due dates, is assignment directions. So again, just explaining it from a back-end user side. So as a student, that's kind of how I engage in Canvas now as a student, not as an instructor. If I, am with a student and they'd say, all right, well, I got something to do for Dunjel. And I say, okay, what is it? And they say, I got to do, I got to do the summary on the Book of Acts or something like that. And I say, all right, well, what's the assignment? We click on summary for Book of Acts and it says no content. Say, okay. So we go over and we click on the syllabus and we go down and we find in the syllabus where it says summary Book of Acts, and it says students will provide a summary Book of Acts, a rubric will be provided. Okay. So then we click over to files and we look for some file that says Book of Acts assignment or rubric for Book of Acts assignment. And we will eventually find it. If we don't, typically I'm going to sit there with the student and I'm going to say, okay, email Professor Dongell, ask him, all right, I'm trying to work on this. Can you give me a little bit more direction, whatever? And I will coach them through emailing you to ask for that. Again, those are perfectly reasonable steps for us to walk through. However, to cut down on some of that, the easiest thing to do is to put all the content for that assignment in that assignment. So when they click on it, if there's a rubric, it's there. If there's assignment directions, it's there. If there's an example, it's there. And that's the nice thing about Canvas is it's very web-based. So it's super easy to put all that content in multiple places. So you can even have it uploaded as a file and just link the file in the assignment. So again, that's more of a, to use the academic word, a pedagogical preference. So I understand for some of you, it is very important that for students, they learn to advocate and hunt and find, and the problem solving piece is an element for you. That is totally your prerogative. However, if that's not what you're trying to do and you genuinely want to make it as easy as possible for them to find assignment directions, putting all of that content in the actual assignment is very helpful. I'm looking at the chat from Dr. Hammond, mostly graduate students. Yeah, we have a few student athletes that are in the graduate program, but generally speaking, those are the cream of the crop, obviously. So they're not having issues very much. In undergrads, more so for sure, yeah. So assignment directions, rubrics, examples, all sorts of things like that are helpful in there if they're already embedded into the class in working with the student, as opposed to having to hunt and find them. Yes, I see. All right. Yeah. Chris just commented that sometimes the students aren't reading the detail and what's the good balance? Yeah. So to me, my perspective on that is if you put too much detail, then they don't read it. If you put nothing, then they have to play scavenger hunt. My preference would be put the detail in there. To me, if they're not willing to read the detail of an assignment that you have made incredibly easy and in front of them, then that's where the accountability begins to go back on them, right? So everything was there. In addition, as I'm sitting down to work with them, or a tutor is sitting down to work with them, and we say, okay, what did the professor want for this? If it's there, we have no question about how to help guide and direct that student. Absolutely, they have gotten very lazy. If it's more than whatever 140 characters or whatever Twitter is, they lose interest very quickly. I am a firm believer that we do not, as an academic institution, have to adapt that far. All right. So what I mean is, I'm not sure. I think we do them a disservice if we teach them that anything you ever need to know is going to come at you in 5 sentences or less. So giving them the information, even if it means that there are 3 paragraphs of information, to me is better. And if they say, well, I'm not going to read 3 whole paragraphs, then I look at them and go, then that's on you. Take your D and get out. Right. And I will say that to them. If a professor is going to provide examples, provide detailed directions, and a student is going to be too lazy to read them, I promise you all day I will be on them about that. I would much rather have that problem than what we are currently facing, which is a bit of a scavenger hunt. And my philosophy is, if I am a 10-year higher education employee, an advocate for higher education, and it takes me 15 minutes of scavenger hunting to find what I need to help a student do an assignment, and my motivation is much higher than theirs, they're going to give up, right? I'm not saying that it's right that they should give up, but I'm saying kind of being mindful of the type of student we tend to bring in at SWU, we probably need to consider some of these barriers. And I just think it's important that as faculty, you make informed decisions about what barriers exist. So all I am simply doing is saying, these are some of the barriers I have encountered, so that you can go, yep, that barrier exists and I'm okay with it. Or, wow, I didn't think about that barrier. I want to try to find a way to work around it. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm looking at. So absolutely, give them the info. If they're too lazy to read it, that's on them. So those are some things related to specifically to building course content. In terms of grading course content, Obviously, the speed of grading is huge. I want you to hear me. I taught for 9 years, so I know what it feels like when it all comes in, and that pressure to kind of get a good turnaround. So I'm not saying that there is like you got to have it graded within 2 days of being turned in or anything ridiculous like that. I just want to make sure that you guys understand that we are making decisions on this side about travel, playing time, position on the team, potentially eligibility and scholarshiping for the following year based on how well a student is doing. So here's an example. Right now, I have a couple of student athletes that because they have work as far back as March that still hasn't been graded. It's submitted. I can see that they turned it in, but it hasn't been graded. So their coach is going, are they going to pass or fail? And I'm going, I don't know. And if they fail, if they render themselves ineligible, he's not going to continue to give them a scholarship, which is completely reasonable. But we're having a hard time making informed decisions about where an athlete is in a class, whether or not they are truly failing, because we have assignments that haven't been graded in period over a month, like a long time. And so if you got a kid that the coach says, until your grade gets up higher, you're not going to be able to travel with the team or practice, and they turn in 6 things and then nothing gets graded, nothing gets graded, nothing gets graded. I just want you to know, again, to kind of go back to my earlier point, we're trying to support what's happening in the classroom. And in order to do that, we're saying your grades aren't where they need to be. If the student is reporting back to us, but coach, I've turned in a bunch of things, that begins to have an impact is all I'm saying. So just kind of be mindful of that. My policy when I was teaching was when I went in to grade an assignment, anybody that hadn't turned it in, I put a 0 in for them. And then I put a comment, if I had a late policy, whatever, if you guys have late policies, I put a comment that says, per the late policy, you may submit this until, and I gave them whatever the date was. If you do that, I will regrade it with a penalty. Otherwise, the 0 remains. The reason that's helpful is because it catches their attention immediately, and it tells me what their actual grade is in the class. They have a 0 in that assignment until they turn it in. Because that's the other issue right now. I have a lot of students, I go into Canvas, and they have stuff from February that they haven't turned in, and there's no 0 for it. So are they excused from that assignment? Like it's hard to know what level of accountability to provide if work isn't graded or 0s aren't awarded. And I know for some of you guys, the reality is you're just sweet people. That's your biggest liability, is that you have these giant hearts and it pains you to put a 0 in. Like it literally causes you pain because you're like, no, but I like them and I know they can do it. And maybe I'm not saying put a 0 in and then don't give them the same grace that you always give them, right? I'm saying put the 0 in. I have had so many times where I had a student say, oh my gosh, I thought I turned that in, and the 0 caught their attention, right? So again, you do your own policies that work best for you, but if they haven't turned something in and you've graded it for everybody else, the 0 is a good reality check. This is what your grade will be if you don't turn this in. It motivates them. I had a student the other day I was working with who I knew his actual grade was probably in the 50s, but his grade on Canvas was an 80 something. And I said, dude, you got to get it in gear. And he said, Mr. Main, I don't know what the big deal is. I got an 84 in there. And I said, but you don't have an 84 in there. Like, I know the assignments you haven't turned in. Your teacher just hasn't put those 0s in yet. And he knew the assignments that he hadn't turned in, but he will delude himself into thinking, as long as it says 84 in Canvas, I got an 84. And so be as kind as you can be, but be as realistic as you can be, because support services on campus. So not just me, what Tanya's trying to do in tutoring, what we're trying to do in terms of retention, like all of these RAs, RDs, what we're trying to do to support these students relies on us having an accurate picture of where they are in a class, not a gracious, hopeful, optimistic picture of where they are in a given class. Submission of alerts sooner rather than later. All right, so that's super helpful. If you can submit that alert, if I'd rather you submit an alert and it turn out to kind of be okay, then wait, and then we end up in a gnarly hole and it's like, oh wow, why didn't we know that they hadn't been to class in 3 weeks? Why didn't we know that they haven't been turning in assignments? So especially if they haven't been turning in work, you aren't entering 0s, there's no way for me to know that they haven't been doing what they're supposed to do. So zeros and alerts really help sort of get the whole system engaged. Like that's the thing that flags us. So that's super helpful. I just saw a comment from Brent. Do you have a best way to contact students who aren't responding beyond sending them a text? I know many students respond best to text messages, but I'm uncomfortable doing that with school assignments. Is there a difference between email or Canvas message, Canvas announcement? I wish we had a texting service, but what I know is that they tend to think that's spam anyway. So I know like financial aid and records have been using it. And then I'll contact a student and I'll say, did you get a message? And they're like, oh, I thought that was spam. I didn't realize that was actually something from SWU. I think that my approach would be Canvas message or email, whichever is your preference. If you've done that a couple of times and you can't get them to respond, turn on an alert, like submit an alert. Because I don't think it's reasonable. I didn't feel like it was reasonable as a faculty member when I was teaching to send text to my students about stuff. However, it is 100% my job to do that. So, I mean, my cell phone number is on everything. Like I get texts all the time from students and that's my job. And so I don't mind doing it. Same with coaches. So we tend to operate on a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week schedule with these students. And so the alert is your way of saying tag, like regular business practices didn't work, help. And so absolutely, that's where we really rely on that alert system is through that. My preference would be, and just one point of clarification, my preference would be that you not ever submit an alert if you have not attempted to or had conversation with the student. It is very disorienting for a student to be called into my office and have an alert brought up with them and they're completely out of the blue. And so if I say, so do you understand why you're here today? No. Well, okay. So I heard from, Professor Dungell that, you've been sitting in class and sleeping every day. What's going on with that? What? Right. That shouldn't happen. Ideally, you would have sent them messages or you would have tried to talk to them. And then if no successful contact or resolution, absolutely contact me. Now, that's not saying you can't do that, but you can imagine it's a little disorienting for them if the first time they hear about it is from me rather than from you. Now, if you've tried to reach out and they're just not responsive, then the conversation with me begins with, so your professor has been trying to reach out to you. Why have you not responded? Then usually what I have them do is pull up your message and I make them reply, setting up an appointment in my office. And then I send them back out the door to go have the conversation with you. So kind of just following a biblical model. Address it with them first if possible. If no successful resolution, then you bring in me and I'm the big guns. Paul, fire away.
Yeah, I was just going to say, how do I know that they know that I've tried to communicate with them?
They don't, you don't have to. So if you have tried to communicate to them and they have not responded, put that in an alert. I've sent several messages. I bring them into my office and I will say to them, Dr. Schleifer has sent you numerous messages on Canvas. Why have you not responded? I haven't gotten any messages. Okay, let's pull up Canvas right now. So I see here on April 15th, he sent you a message. I see again on April 19th, he sent you a message. And we walk through it that way. And then I'll say, all right, pull up one, reply back. Dear Dr. Schleifer, first, let me apologize for not responding to your previous messages. And I will walk him through that. So yeah, I'm not at all saying that they're all going to be responsive. They're not. They're going to ignore those messages. Attempt. The other thing to consider is if they are still coming to class, provided that's not the issue, you can also do a quick, hey, Paul, can you hang around after class for just a second? If you have the time for that. If you don't, just a quick, hey, I sent you a Canvas message. Can you respond to that? Again, we're having them face to face. Is it awkward sometimes? Yes. That is an uncomfortable conversation to have. But again, it just helps. It helps in my role if they've heard it from you first.
So if I could follow up, just for this period of what we're in right now, I have several students, at least a few of whom I know are student athletes, who haven't turned in speeches. And I've sent them messages. I'm giving them till May 25th as per instructed, because we have that extra time. And I'm sure some of them probably have tech issues for submitting speeches online, because it's a lot harder than just doing a speech in class. You want those messages now?
Yeah, if they're not being responsive, yeah, just put an alert in. And that way, anybody who has, so you put an alert in that, you know, John Smith hasn't turned in these speeches. I gave them to this date, but they have not been responsive to my messages. I'm going to send them a text that says, hey, Schleifer has graciously given you an extension. Why have you not submitted anything? Why have you not responded to his messages? Are you having technological issues? Like if they've been in communication with you and you know what the issue is and you're working with them, I don't need to be a middleman. But if you can't get them to respond, right, and you're trying to extend grace and you're trying to work with them and they are simply not responding, it's my job to chase them down.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep. Okay. All right, continuing on real quick. There are a couple of sort of extra bonusy kind of things that I would say that I have done when I was teaching that I just wanted to mention. If anybody says, man, I'd really like to start getting my Canvas class streamlined so that it's very student view friendly. I just wanted to put it out there. Let me know. You could send me an email and I can walk you through and show you a few things, kind of like, hey, if you're 18 and you're sitting down with Canvas the first time, here's what really does make it more user friendly. This, I would say, is probably geared more towards the gen eds than your major classes. So you might, like, I used to set up gen psych for non-majors a lot differently than I would abnormal psychology for my seniors. Like my expectations are different. So I need to structure that class differently, but also I need to structure Canvas differently. So if any of you guys sort of want someone to kind of walk you through and think through the student view and the student side of things, I didn't want to waste our time today going through that, but I did just kind of want to put that out there as something I'm willing to do because it's not something I thought of a lot when I was on the teaching side. The final thing, and I just want to be mindful of time, but the final thing I wanted to point out or speak to was academic advising. You guys use all different strategies for academic advising depending on disciplinary, whatever works in your discipline or what systems you guys have in place. My sort of 2 requests. Number 1, if you encounter errors in the degree audit, which I know that happens. I encountered it regularly because that's an automated system. Please contact records and have those fixed as you work with those students. The reason I say that is because on my end, if you go in and you're doing advising and you have a note in your file that says exception here or this substitution or I waive this requirement, but it's not in the degree audit, when we're sitting down thinking through things of eligibility, when we're making sure student athletes are taking the courses that they need in order to remain eligible, as they think about summer school or their GPA or classes that are required for progress or degree, we're using that degree audit as a tool. In addition, I'm pointing students to the degree audit as a tool that they can use to make sure they're staying on track. So if that degree audit isn't accurate, I encounter this all the time when I was doing advising. I just sent an email to records. Hey, so-and-so's in my office right now. They brought in credit for gen psych from another institution. It's showing up as an elective. It should be listed on their major. Boom, boom, boom. I also like to copy the student on that because then the student has a written record that we advocated for the change. I think that that only further reinforces the idea that we want you to be proactive in your academic advising. So tracking with that degree audit is super helpful because on our end for eligibility purposes and stuff, we certify eligibility twice a year. And part of what we're using for that is the degree audit. So I can't exactly open Mike's file cabinet and go look at his handwritten notes on a particular student when we're working through a degree audit for eligibility. It's helpful to know that what Mike sees as what that student needs for graduation is the same as what's listed in my SWU on the degree audit. If it's not, that can create a little bit of confusion. And then the other thing, this is minor, but whatever you're providing to your students as an advising plan, whether that's just for the following semester or whether you do 4-year plans, it would be super helpful if you would provide something or require something of them in writing each time. Because we do end up in a little bit of he said, she said when it comes to advising sometimes. And I am trying very, very hard to create more accountability for students in this. So I will say to them, well, what did your advisor tell you to take? Well, they told me to take da, 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 da. Okay, show me your notes from that meeting. Show me the advising plan that they handed you and said, this is what you need to take over the 4 years you're here at SWU. So what I have started doing is taking many of them to the electronic catalog that's on the webpage, showing them how to print off the degree planner advising worksheet that kind of comes built into our online catalog, and saying to them, take this with you every time to advising. Write down what your advisor says, ask them to sign it at the bottom, and keep it. When you graduate from SWU, you should have 8 of these, one for every semester you went in for advising. Because I want to move them towards being more proactive and taking more ownership in why they're in the classes that they're in. I'm tired of hearing, I don't know why, my advisor just told me to take those classes. Okay, why? Like, ask questions, be proactive, make sure you understand what your advisor is telling you, and write it down, because your memory is not as good as you think it is. And so I want you to know that's what I'm pushing for them. And so if there's a way that you can either go electronically and email them something, or just make sure that when they leave your office, they have it written down. And I'm pushing them. I'm telling them, you've got to have this. You've got to have this. And so I just want you to know that if they come in with a piece of paper and they write, and then they hand it to you and ask you to sign it, that's because I made them do that. All right. So I'm the bad guy in that. Don't fight them. It's me trying to force them to be more accountable and take on some ownership. And you signing it proves that you're saying yes. They didn't just sit in their room and write down some stuff and say, yeah, this is what my advisor told me. No, I want to see Patty Hovis signed at the bottom, and she said to take these classes, that you didn't just sign yourself up for some junk schedule. Okay. So that's 55 minutes. I did it. Those are sort of the things that I wanted to cover, and that I covered in the Lunch and Learn that we did earlier this semester. I do want to make sure that if there are any other questions, that I address them now. Paul, I should have known. Yes, sir.
Hey again, Emily. Okay, well, 2 things I wanted to ask you. I may have missed this earlier, like when my granddaughter came walking through or something. That's the second thing. The first thing is, I would not feel comfortable signing 8 of those things through the course of a student's career, because it has been known in higher ed for students to sue advisors when they didn't graduate on time, even though it wasn't the advisor's fault. You know, I mean, that makes it sound like I'm engaging in a contract with the student. The student's responsible for it. I mean, I can understand giving them written something or sharing my notes from an advising session, but signing it makes it sound like a contract. So,
yep. I mean, that's completely your prerogative. I guess my perspective on it is all you're doing is signing, saying, yep, these are the classes I told you to take. What you sign up for, if the student signs up for something different, that's on them. But it's basically your way of saying, this is what I communicated to you. What I am having is students who come to me and say, my advisor told me to take these classes. And the advisor says, those are not the classes I told you to take. And so it's a little bit of one person saying one thing, one person saying another. So yeah, if you don't feel comfortable signing it, that's completely your prerogative. So I'll know if I have any English major athletes, which, you know, we are not awash in those.
No, we're not. Yep.
I'll tell them best of luck getting Dr. Schleifer to sign it. Instead, maybe you could just take a selfie next to Dr. Schleifer.
The other thing, and you may have said this or not, and I think I know the answer to this question, and I'm sort of asking it for newer faculty members. FERPA. Do our student athletes, in signing their, what do we call it, when they agree to come and play?
Yeah. Well, they got no FERPA with us. So we're me and coaches all fall under the, what, I don't know what the exact phrase is, but it's sort of like that need to know category. So all coaches and athletic administrators. So me, Drew Emery for compliance, Julia as the AD, we are covered under FERPA. So
Okay.
we are actually listed as an advisor for the student. So we have access to their transcript, like everything. So if you can see it, we can probably see it on them.
Okay, and just one more little thing. We already talked about this a couple of weeks ago or so, but I just want to remind, it would be really helpful, in addition to the electronic surveillance of student athletes and sharing that between faculty and coaches, it would be really, really helpful if we have a live face-to-face workshop in August, if we could get all the coaches to come for a
Oh, yeah.
session and we actually meet them and get to know them a little bit. I mean, are we going to have a new volleyball coach come, or is Julie going to do both?
No, Julie's going to wear both hats. She's got a big enough head to wear both hats, so she's going to do that at least for the short term. We actually, after you mentioned that in our meeting a couple of weeks ago, I talked with Julia about it. We're on it. So regardless of what happens on the faculty development workshop day side of it, athletics will likely be hosting something. So we're in the process right now of kind of putting something together. Some of it is due just the fact that Julia is going to be new and we want to make sure people know who she is. But just, we're going to start the year on a really good tone. So that was a great suggestion. I talked to Julia about it later that afternoon, actually, after you made that recommendation. So the wheels are turning on that.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Half joke, half serious. Can you be accountability for the non-athlete students as well that aren't turning to our communication?
Nope. Yeah. I'll take just my 300 for now. 300 to 1 ratio is, I think, probably already pushing the limits. And that will probably be what our rosters will be at this semester. We'll be right at the 300 number. Any other questions? Well, I do just want to make sure you guys understand, and I hope that my street cred as a faculty member means that I get somewhat invited to these conversations. I very much value what you guys are doing. I am so glad that I switched out of academics before Corona, because I don't even want to think about what the last 2 months have been like to try to switch everything online. And I was still teaching the class for One Life, and it just, you can Zoom all day long. It just doesn't feel the same. And so my heart goes out to you guys for loving your students well through this. I've heard so many comments from students, naming several of you by name, that you've just been gracious and kind. I was actually talking to a coach this morning, and he said, do you think grades are actually going to be higher because of this? And I said, in some ways, probably, because our faculty, they just want to be gracious and understand this is a really hard time. And so I just want to thank you guys for what you've done, and let you know I 100% am a resource. Like, if you think you need help with something, I don't mind helping, even if it's not really my job. And if I can't help, I'll say no. But I want it to be a, man, let me see if Emily can help me with this, rather than a hesitancy to reach out, or even just sort of maybe a saltiness towards athletics or other non-faculty people being involved. Man, I'm in this to support what you guys are doing, and whatever that needs to look like, holler. And just know that when they're in my office, 100% I have y'all's back. I am pushing them very hard. We are working to create some accountability and some structure. So thank you guys. I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you, Emily. You got so much in that period of time, and it was wonderful hearing you. When you were describing your athletes, I said, he described everything about my son who attends here. The only thing is he's not an athlete, but he has all those characteristics. So I can appreciate you taking on 300 of kids that have my son's exact characteristics. My heart goes out. And I appreciate what you do. Every time I hear more about the student side, it really makes me think more about the tools and resources that we can make available to faculty, so that we can all work together. So that was great. I made a few notes that I'd like to share with everybody, and they're very quick. The default settings for the students, I'll look into that. I'm not sure what the student settings are, but I'll work with IT to find out if we could do some things to make it a little easier for you, Emily, and a little easier for the students and help them be more successful. All of that really ties in with Dropout Detective. I'd like to turn it on and see it all green, all semester. So we're just going to work together and make it happen. there is a student view that you can access, everyone, if you want to see what the student sees. Also, two things that I turned on is confetti that pops out when students turn in assignments on time. You know, that's a reinforcement that we were able to add, as well as first-time users in Canvas will automatically get an orientation. So that's something that I turned on post COVID-19. With the advising, everyone does have an advisement shell. And as I set up your dashboards and update your advisement shells, I'm hoping that we can all streamline the advisement process so that we're all doing much of the same process, the same look. So I'll be working hard on my side to help you with that. And as far as the session in the fall, there's no need for us to be working on different sides. If we could pull in all of the coaches as a part of our faculty development while you're already there, I say let's do it. So Emily, let's talk a little more about that. Whew. That was great. I think we all are ready for a 15-minute break. Emily, thank you again for your time, your devotion. And we're going to take about 15 minutes. And when we come back, we'll be ready for Paul Schatzberger, who is going to do a session on promotion and tenure. See you in 15. Okay, everyone. It's 3:15 and we're at our final session. Don't cheer too loud. I want to tell you, you all have been great. I'm not going to delay in introducing our next presenter. Dr. Paul Schatzberger is just someone who wears many, many hats, from faculty member to book writer, author. He is currently still overseeing the EDD program, correct? He has so many hats, husband, father, it just many things. And in addition to that, you know, he's like the promotion tenure guru. So I call on him like every time we meet to do a presentation about promotion and tenure. And I want to thank him for always graciously saying yes and just graciously volunteering to do so many things to help SWU be what SWU is. So without further ado, this is someone who does not even need an introduction. I will turn it over to Dr. Paul Schatzberger, who is going to talk to you about the Southern Wesleyan University promotion and tenure process.
Thanks, Karen. I appreciate all the embarrassment. Yeah, so I tend to be the one doing this because nobody else wants to do it. I mean, that's essentially what it comes down to. And I have been the chair of the promotion tenure committee for a few years, and who knows if that'll change next year. Be nice to think, but I am chair, and so that's why I'm doing this presentation. And some of you all have heard this before, and I have no idea why you're going to sit through it again, but it's fine. So I want to just show you a few things, some of which you have access to right now, and some of which you can have access to. So the things that I show you, if you're interested in getting them from me or getting access to them, you can just email me, and I'll make sure that that happens. I'll either email you the document, or in the case of like being able to look at a portfolio, you know, I'll ask CTE for the permission for that. So we'll just kind of traipse through this, and I won't get too down into the weeds. You have access to the most important thing, which is the faculty handbook, and that has all of this information. And so I'm just kind of providing some insight perhaps into what is already there, but it is already there. So just to remind you, in my SWU, on the left side for faculty, there is a link specifically to the faculty handbook. And part of that is promotion and tenure. And so it gives you the criteria for promotion. It talks about the degrees required for promotion. And it also gives you the performance areas. And for those who were new, who haven't been exposed to this kind of thing before, I don't know. There are different requirements for associate professor and then also for professor, but there are common requirements. And so there are requirements that are in italics, and those are the common requirements. And then there may be, there may not be, but there may be some additional items that are required for any given performance area. So you can see for performance area 1, there are 2 italicized items and then also 3 other items. And for associate professor, the only requirements for performance area 1 are italicized items. For professor, italicized items plus 1 additional after completing, item completed after attaining associate professor status. So that is kind of the difference. And the portfolio that you have access to, if you desire, and when you need it from CTE for promotion and tenure, includes everything. So it has all of the required items, it has all the optional items, and you just complete those that you need, for any particular level that we're talking about. So the areas, just to be clear, performance area 1 is teaching performance, 2 is scholarly and professional attainment, 3 is involvement in program and missions, and performance area 4 is participation in community life. So it gives you a bit of a timeline of when things are due and when things are reviewed. Generally speaking, the faculty member notifies their, gives their desire to apply for promotion or tenure to the provost in the spring, and then has sort of the summer to work on the portfolio. September 15th is the deadline to be submitted. I recommend to everyone that I talk to, promotion or tenure, that the first person to see this portfolio besides you is not necessarily the committee, the promotion and tenure committee. I think the more eyes that see this before it's actually submitted, probably the better, especially those people who've been through the process before and can identify if there are gaps and holes and things that need to be filled in. So I would think in terms of maybe August, sharing that with a division chair, a dean, someone who's been through the process, and just say, do you see anything else that probably should be included? But anyway, September 15th, that's when it is turned over to the committee. The committee works on it during the fall. We have a deadline of January 15th for our recommendations to the provost. And I also want to just mention here that all the committee does is provide a recommendation. We are not any kind of decision body, in case you're wondering. So we have been through the portfolios in great detail, and we have discussed them in great detail. And at the end of it, we provide a memorandum to the provost and the presidents confer, and then, that's when the decision is actually made. So, so just understand the committee is really involved in this primarily in the fall. The one exception is that for those who are going out for tenure, who need to do the tenure presentation, we're also involved in that a little bit in the sense that we need to get the presentation ahead of time and look it over and that kind of thing. But that's kind of minimal participation on our part. I will just mention that we had a couple of candidates go up for tenure this year and granted tenure, and had every intention of having the tenure presentations be today, actually. And then COVID-19 kind of intervened, and things got a little crazy. And so we are pushing that to August. And we're really, really hopeful that maybe that actually can be done face to face. But we'll see about that. Okay, and then there is also information on the tenure process. One of the things that's changed in the last few years at Southern Wesleyan is that the tenure process used to be completely separate from promotion. So promotion was granted, and then a year later, probably the tenure was applied for. Now, tenure can be applied for at the same time as going up for associate. Or, you know, if you came in as associate and then you're applying for full professor, it can be applied for. So one of the things that I suggest to everybody who I talk to who is coming up on candidacy, whether short-term or long-term, but is tenure track, is that you understand exactly what your status is at the university. The best people to talk to are going to be your provost and your dean about that. But there should be no question about when you go up, you know, potentially for, you know, promotion and tenure to associate or promotion to full. I mean, there are specific years that are laid out in the handbook, but as we know, people come in with experience at another university. They come in also having already been promoted to associate. And so there's a lot of different flavors with this, you know, time to promotion and time to tenure and that kind of thing. So if you are uncertain about that in any way, shape, or form, you should definitely have a conversation, probably with the provost and probably also with your dean. So moving through this, and again, you all can, again, there's the timeline for consideration. There's a procedure for appeals. And then the thing that I wanted to point out that maybe people are not completely aware of is at the back, there are appendices, and these are the actual rubrics that we use on the committee for promotion. And, you know, it's nice to know kind of what we have to work with, I think, as you're putting this together. So, for instance, performance area 1, there are 2 required elements. And so, you know, the possibilities are not completed, minimally completed, adequately completed, and fully completed. Of course, we would like everybody to be fully completed on everything. That would be amazing. We have obviously instances where things are, you know, adequately completed, and then we have to kind of decide, is that, you know, sufficient? Minimally completed and not completed, obviously you don't want to be there. So this is what I'm talking about when, if you would share this portfolio of yours before it's actually submitted, and somebody could say, you know what, I think you need to punch this area up a little bit because you don't seem to have, you know, a lot of evidence for this particular item. And notice also that there are suggestions that are given for what you could include. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in a moment. So notice that the way it's kind of, you know, put in here, this is the rubric for promotion to associate, okay? So if there is a plus, it's already in there, okay? So there are required items, but then there is the +3. And that doesn't mean that every item is +3, you have to have something for. That means you have to have 3 items. That's what it means. Those are the 3, you know, options out of, you know, all of these that are not italicized. And again, you know, some possibilities are suggested in terms of what could be used. And I'll show you an example of this and it'll be a little bit clearer. And degree and then, yeah, there's an extensive list for performance area 2 of, you know, what kind of scholarship might we be talking about and what kind of evidence might be possible. You have to understand, of course, that, you know, we're talking about every discipline at the university. So, you know, evidence may be a paper, it may be an article, it may be a chapter, but it may be a performance. And so there has to be a lot of leeway in terms of the evidence. And I'll get back to that point too. And then just moving on, Appendix 2, just FYI, promotion to professor, same idea, okay? So again, you see like performance area 1, required, but then +1. So you have to just decide. And can you have more than, +3 or +1? Yeah, absolutely. If you want to put in 4 for 3, or if you want to put in 2 for 1, I mean, that's fine. That's completely your choice. All right, so that's what you already have access to. That's on my SWU. Now, sometimes when I switch media, you can't see what I'm looking at. Can you see the ePortfolio that I've got up right now on Canvas? Yes, okay, good, excellent. All right, so this is what it looks like in Canvas. And this is everything, okay? So this would be like, if you just open this fresh and, there was nothing in it and nothing had been done to it. So you'll notice right away, there are some additional things that are required beyond just the performance areas, okay? One is self-development reports for those years that are pertinent to the promotion and tenure or promotion only. So that's what you do every year. And so if you would be going up for, let's say, associate, okay, and you're in your 5th year, obviously you haven't done one of these things for your 5th year. So you would have 4 years of these things, okay? Assuming you've been at SWU for that whole time. So that's in the supporting documentation. The VITA is required under biographical information, your VITA, and also copies of your transcripts are required as well. Then, not to be missed, down at the bottom, all the way to the bottom, are recommendations. And this is an expectation, okay, for the committee to be looking at the portfolio. So at the very least, you would be talking about a recommendation from your direct supervisor, and that could be a division chair, it could be dean, but potentially it could be others as well. One of the things that is required is some, well, hang on, let me go back up. So we have, under performance area 3, leadership at SWU, okay? We also have effective service on committees, and that's one of the optional items. If you are trying to demonstrate these things, okay, that, leadership at SWU or effective service on committees or whatever it is, it's not really enough that you just simply say, I'm on this committee. It's not enough to provide a list of committees. Everybody has that. We have a list of committees. What you want is someone to actually talk about what you do. And that's a great place for a recommendation letter. So your dean can talk, kind of generally about what you do. But if you are like trying to address a particular performance area or a particular item in the performance area, the more direct, the more defined your evidence, the better. And a great way to do that is to get, for instance, a committee chair to talk about what you've done for the committee. That's an excellent recommendation to have. I don't think you can overdo it with that. Don?
Would you put that recommendation that is specific to a performance area in the performance area or in that recommendation area?
Yeah, right. Thanks. So one of the great things about the portfolio, which again, I'll show you an example in just a moment. This is just a generic, is that you can hyperlink anything, you know, so you can link to a recommendation. Think of your Canvas course, okay? And you are, you know, putting things in files and then you are linking to them. It's exactly the same thing, okay? So once you put the letter in, you can link it to anything. You can link it to recommendations, but you can link it to an area, okay? So I think, yes, the answer is yes. The more direct you're being with your evidence for a particular area, for a particular item, the better. You know, the less hunting around that the committee has to do, absolutely the better. Not just for the committee, but for you, because, you know, for sure we're going to find that thing, you know, whatever it is. Okay, and then also notice that there's at the bottom of the portfolio is also the tenure. I just want to just throw this in here. There are specific requirements, though they tend to look different for different individuals. So time to tenure, that's actually a letter. The provost, the dean, who's saying, yes, this person's been here a sufficient number of years to go up for tenure. Commitment to SWU is pretty freewheeling. It's just a statement by you, and I'll show you one, that talks about your commitment, your plans, your collaborations, your desires, you know, if granted tenure. And then that faith integration paper, that's at the presentation, that's the thing that I was talking about earlier, that our two candidates who have been granted tenure will hopefully present in person in August. So, and again, I'll talk a little bit more about that. So this is just a kind of a generic one, and I just wanted to say, okay, this is what you're going to find when you first look at yours. And by the way, CTE will be happy to provide you one of these at any point. So in the old days, you know, when we had paper portfolios, I mean, what we would do, generally speaking, is we'd have a file folder, and as stuff came up and we did stuff, we just, you know, file it away, and it's all a bunch of paper. And then it's something that we can go to and we can sort of construct a portfolio out of it. Here, it's kind of nice, actually, because you have access to the thing that's actually going to be looked at by the committee, but you don't have to publish. You know, it can be just like an unpublished course. And so as things come up and as you have evidence and as you have, you know, again, things happening that you want to record, you can just go ahead and put them into the portfolio. And then you don't have to, you know, once you're eligible, you know, have this amazingly concentrated time of trying to get everything together, you know, at that moment. So I really recommend to just go ahead and ask CTE for a portfolio, no matter where you are in the process. And just, you know, have it on your mind, you know, do it in the summer, you know, when you think about it, when you have time, and you just kind of slot stuff in. In fact, it could be just, you just put stuff in the files, you know, and then you organize it later. So, yeah. So I think that there are, I'm trying to see the chat. I tell you what, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. So, if I can, yeah. Well, I mean, ultimately, I'm thinking about Chad's question. Ultimately, I would say either division chair or dean should be looking at this. However, I just also want to say that there, in terms of people who have actually been through this particular process, okay, like with an e-portfolio, we don't actually have that many around. And so it may be helpful to have somebody who's actually done that before, actually an e-portfolio before. I, for instance, went through, everything was paper. So, in that sense, I don't have the experience to put an e-portfolio together. I just have looked at a bunch of them, and so I know, what a better one looks like. I am happy to look at a portfolio. But I do think that the dean, should be involved, or the division chair. But someone who, especially, by the way, if they're putting their name on this, like a recommendation letter, you could probably make a case that they should see the thing. That would be, but I just think it's helpful. It's not that it's an absolute requirement, although honestly, I wish it was. Don?
I think we're at different committees that I'm on. I can't necessarily separate them, but
yeah.
We're looking at having a mentor who has gone through the process that should be assigned or agreed upon by the division chair or the dean to help shepherd each candidate through.
Right.
And who can suggest different evidences, and then can also assess whether you're just kind of sliding through, or is that really scholarly?
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't want to give I am on P&T, for those of you who don't know. You don't want to give a shoddy product. You really want to over evidence, and to make sure you're presenting your best case. And so there should be a mentor who is going to read all of it and then comment and work on it and say, no, that's not enough. And so that we don't want you to work in the dark here, but that if you can't find somebody, then talk to your dean or a division chair to have somebody work with you.
Yeah, and obviously it helps to have somebody in your discipline.
Yes.
Because they're going to have a better sense of the evidence that's possible. And Stacy asked a question. Thank you. Yeah, that's going to be the same portfolio because, again, the same portfolio applies to whether we're talking about promotion to associate or promotion to full. So that's kind of nice too. You already have a lot of stuff in there. The one thing that I would ask and I would plead is if you have already been through this process once, like for associate, and now you're going up for full professor, please do not have the same letters in there. Okay, please just don't do that. Also, you must have done something additional in the last few years. So please include, more recent evidence, just a general update. Understanding, of course, that there are more requirements for full professor. So you are going to have to do more, but at the same time, the stuff that's in there, just make sure it's up to date. Yes, you can look at a successful portfolio. I was just getting ready to show you that. Okay, so let me share that. I think I've got the right one. I hope I've got the right one.
The two this year were excellent. And
yep, this is the one. Okay, yeah. Chad Chisholm and also Jeff Moore. And Chad has given me permission to let you see his portfolio. And if you would ask me or ask CTE, it's fine. You can have access to Chad's portfolio. Okay, so you know, that would allow you just to spend a little bit more time than what I'm able to give you right now.
Okay, I'm
So-
asking.
Yeah.
I'll
Okay. Oh, you're
email
asking.
you.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And here's part of that question.
Yeah.
Can I choose my mentor? Because I've been talking with Chad about this, and I would ask him to mentor me, and he was cool with that. And we were trying to figure out how I could look at. I've already done the associate professor thing, and I'm
Right.
looking at the tenure thing now.
Yeah.
You already gave me one good hint. Change my recommendation letters.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and mentioning that, by the way, and then I'll get to the other one. You know, if you're going up for promotion and tenure, you know, get the person to say that. You know, I'm recommending in favor of promotion and tenure, blah blah blah. If it's just for tenure, say, you know, I'm recommending for tenure. I just, again, try to get people as specific as possible in what is being talked about. So about the mentor, I can't really answer that. I think if the division chairs are okay with all of that, then I think it's fine. But obviously, yes, I highly recommend someone, even if it's not a formal something or other, I highly recommend someone who's been through the process. That's just super helpful. The thing that I want to point out about Chad's right away with his performance areas is you'll notice that not all of those possible items are listed for the different performance areas. So when you get the, again, generic, you know, portfolio, then it's going to have a lot of items in there. If you're not using an item, just go ahead and delete it. You know, just like if it's an assignment, you know, under a module or something like that, that's all it is. You just delete it. And again, it just makes things clean, makes things easy to navigate. It makes things obvious for the committee, you know, when reviewing. So I recommend that. So in other words, the things that are here are the things that we're supposed to review, you know, and I think that's helpful. So what would be a good thing? So the performance area is just generic, and it's exactly the requirements that were in the portfolio. So once you get into it a little bit, one of the things I appreciated about what Chad did and also what Jeff did is they didn't really take too much for granted in terms of our understanding of you know, their area or you know, kind of their view on this particular performance area as far as their discipline is concerned. There's a lot of helpful language in this. And I highly recommend anybody putting a portfolio together, it's not just a bunch of links, please, you know. Don't leave it up to us to figure out why this thing is important for some particular performance area, because we may have absolutely no idea about your area. So there's some good language in it. There's good descriptions in it. He's got papers in it that are linked, and that's, you know, that's going to be the more typical, I think, of, you know, what you would see. A little bit less typical, but I highly recommend it, is you know, like the hyperlink stuff, the videos, and you know, maybe websites, whatever it might be. And so he's really gone through and taken a great deal of time, not only to write the stuff, but then also give us some examples along the way. And so if he's talking about English Composition 2, he's also giving us something to look at. In this case, it's the syllabus. So just understand that with an e-portfolio, I mean, the sky's the limit in terms of evidence. You know, you can have really any kind of hypermedia you can imagine in there. You don't want to just throw stuff in to throw it in. But I mean, it can be super helpful. And again, where we may not completely understand everything about what you're saying about a course or something like that, if we can see it, you know, if we can, you know, be shown something, that probably would be helpful. And I keep seeing, Karen, maybe you can tell me how I can see chat. I cannot see chat. Somebody is able to do that, and I'm not able to do that.
Actually, I was just trying to find it because Lewis Knight requested it. What is it named? Portfolio.
It's promotion tenure, Chad Chisholm.
Okay, I'll try to get you access right now.
And I'm sorry, I'm for whatever reason, I'm not able to see the chat. But I'll stop sharing in a little bit.
I'm working on it, okay?
Okay. Okay. So anyway, it kind of goes on like this, and you know, you can take some time with it. You can have access to it. You can take some time with it and see the kinds of things that were included. I do just want to hit on this real quick, the tenure supplements, because, you know, this is, you know, an unusual animal. And because we have this, you know, historical, you know, aspect of the tenure having been separate from promotion, we do have some people who are going to be going up, you know, for tenure alone, who are already promoted. So in this commitment to SWU, you're not going to be able to read this, but one thing I really appreciate is Chad, you know, says, in the next 10 years, I want to pursue this, you know, and so he already has relationships started. He already has collaborations going, you know, those kinds of things. He already has, let's say, a series that he's developed, a speaker series or something else. He wants to keep that going. And all along here, again, just rather than just listing things, he's also including examples of these things, and all along, you know, as we go through. So that to me is a solid statement, you know, because, you know, for tenure, what you're saying is, I want to be here the rest of my working career, and that's a big statement, you know. So what is it that you want to do, you know, and why would that be important to the university? Okay, and then another thing, time to tenure. These are just simply letters. That's all, or actually email. April White and Randolph Johnson, you know, and it just says again that you have enough years, you know, to be considered for tenure. That used to be, again, a little bit more of a deal when promotion and tenure were separate. And then faith integration paper and presentation, he has something in here, but it's just kind of his idea of what he wants to do. It's not the actual presentation. So, you know, once that presentation time comes around, that would be loaded in, the committee would look at it. That's, again, you know, sort of part of the thing. So you understand that, you know, there isn't that much more for tenure, but again, you know, you have to have fulfilled, you know, at least everything for associate. So you have all of that in there in the portfolio. And then everything is updated. And I cannot possibly stress this enough. So especially for some of you, you were promoted and now a couple of years have gone by. please just make sure that the stuff in there, because we look at everything, okay? If you're going for tenure and tenure alone, we're still looking at everything. So please just make sure that what's in there is what you want us to see. Okay, let me stop sharing for a moment, and then I can actually look at the chat. Yes. Thank you, Karen. I appreciate you. Is the presentation of PowerPoint video in person? I mean, we're very hopeful it's going to be in person, but there's no guarantee at this point. But you know, for August, you know, we're hoping it would be in person. Yes, a PowerPoint, but can you do stuff beyond the PowerPoint? Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, it's your show, you know, so if you want to show a video, you know, just what it's intended to be. Let me attempt this one, because this is sometimes hard for people to kind of get their arms around. What it's intended to be is a faith integration statement in light of your discipline. Okay, so how do you view faith integration from the perspective of your discipline? And this can be a pretty high level presentation. Now, can you give us, you know, examples and, you know, I mean, specifics and that sort of thing? Sure. But again, this is for tenure, okay? So we're talking big picture. You know, what's your big picture of faith integration? Because that's kind of like what it's all about around here.
Can I ask a question with that in mind?
Absolutely.
I saw something says, with permission, can we highlight student work? Most of my stuff that would show my faith integration are my values talk show that I did with the Division of Religion, are the short films that my students made that are based on the ethics of Jesus Christ as opposed to Aristotle or Immanuel Kant, you know. And so that's, to me, that's how I have them demonstrated to me that they're catching on. So that's what I was getting at. I'm, you know, if I can show some good examples of the work that we do in our classroom.
Yes,
some kind of montage of your students, you know, talking. I mean, that's awesome, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's clearly the way that through video and communications is how you relate to the gospel too, and teaching. So I think that would be a fabulous way to go.
Okay, and then I'm going to finish up with these two documents, which I can email to you. Okay, I tried to put them on SharePoint, and I think I broke SharePoint. Whatever was there for promotion and tenure is now, it says 404 not found. So I think I need to go through that SharePoint material, you know, as part of the training. But anyway, but I can send this to you, all right? One is, and again, some of you have seen this, it's kind of lessons learned, things that we have seen on the committee that just, it just comes up over and over again. And so I just want to hit the highlights. If you want this, just email me, tell me that you want it, okay? So the number one thing that I would say is this is not your self-development report. It's just not. You know, we have the self-development reports. That's not what we need. What we need now is evidence. And evidence for every single item that you are putting up for consideration. So it's not just lists. You know, it's not just a list of committees, as an example. You know, I'm on this committee. It's evidence of what you did on the committee. It's evidence of what you do in the classroom. It's evidence of your professional activity. It's evidence of your activity in the community. And, you know, you can have simple evidence. You know, it could be a picture, you know, or something like that, but it can be, and probably should be in some cases, more extensive and at the very least, with descriptions. Please, 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 don't just give us a bunch of links, like I said before, and don't just give us a bunch of files. Please include some kind of verbiage around the link that says why this is important, and don't just leave it up to us to figure out. And you know, the other bullets kind of come from this: don't just submit evidence, make your case. That's essentially what I was just saying. Make sure the evidence is targeted toward a particular performance area, not just like a dump of files. Repetition of evidence is possible for different areas, but please don't use the same evidence for all areas. There's just no way that looks good. Okay, that just looks lazy. And so just try to target it as much as you can. Exploit the capabilities of ePortfolio. That's what I was talking about earlier. Don't recycle support letters. Please get new ones. So if you're going out for full professor, don't use the ones from associate. Support letters should specifically address accomplishments. And also what it is that you're going up for. Promotion to associate, and this is what they've done in the last 5 years or 4.5 or whatever. A letter recommendation from the immediate supervisor. Preference is given to direct evidence over indirect. So in other words, a letter of reference from a chair of a committee as opposed to a list of committees. Assume little about the expertise of the committee, as I mentioned, and provide proof of membership. In the case of performance area 2, this is an optional item. Proof of membership in a professional organization. In the case of performance area 4, it's a requirement. Proof of membership in the church. But there's a lot of latitude in that. Okay, we understand not every organization has specific membership. They don't have membership cards. You don't send in your money, each year or something like that. In some cases, it's tied to attending a conference. And so then your membership is renewed. Okay, well, we need that, okay? And failing everything, we need a letter, from somebody in the organization that says, yes, this person is in good standing, has been part of this organization, presents at our conferences, attends our conferences, those kinds of things. Likewise, the church membership, if membership is not a thing at your church, and that's certainly possible, we just need a letter. So from the pastor, from someone in leadership. And again, talking about, yes, this person is active, has been with this church X number of years. And by the way, if it's just 1 year, that's okay. That's fine. We just need to know that there's something happening, and I would never, name a name, but we had an applicant recently for a position at SWU, faculty position, and they were talking about their church membership, and they said that I attend Joel Osteen's church on television. Okay, like this was their idea of church membership, is that I watch Joel Osteen every Sunday. And so we just kind of want to get past that and just make sure that there's a commitment, of some description. It may be, again, recent, maybe longstanding, but some kind of commitment. Okay. And then go ahead. Yeah.
So a local church body is what you're saying?
Yeah. So, we can all say we're part of the Church Universal, but yeah, it would be great if it was, a more local church that we could actually sow into. That's kind of the idea. I'm using my gifts in this church, and they actually know that I exist. That sort of thing. And I understand, some churches are very small and you're well known. Some churches are very big and you're not well known. but who does know you, right? So you're part of, say, a small group or something like that. Get somebody to write a letter to that effect, and so we don't have to hear that you're there every Sunday, or something like that, but just that you're involved, in that church. Go ahead, Donna, you're going to say something?
Well, I was just saying you don't have to rip your page out of the Lamb's Book of Life.
Right. Yeah, there you go. Remember, if it isn't in the portfolio, it didn't happen. We're not going to come after you for additional evidence. So again, I mean, I guess you can say over evidence, but not to the point that it's obvious that you're just kind of, throwing everything in the kitchen sink.
So question again?
Yeah, go ahead.
Our church doesn't have an official membership, but I build their website, I shoot their videos. I can get a letter from, even though there's not an official membership.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. And then, as I mentioned before, the more eyes that look at your portfolio before submission, the more likely that gaps will be detected. And make sure that your immediate supervisors have an opportunity to review the portfolio. You want people to go to bat for you, right? You want people to have your back. But if you submit something that they've never seen, that kind of ties somebody's hand behind their back. And so I just encourage you, let some eyes see it before it's actually submitted. Okay, so that's one document that I could send you if you want. The other document, and we're almost done, honest, I promise, is a list of suggested evidence. I will not go through this in any great, actually, you know what? I'm going to stop sharing just for a second and try coming back in. This seems to work better sometimes. Okay. A lot of detail here, obviously. And so I don't want to just read through this thing, but I do want to give you the sense that, just for this one performance area, just for one item, there's so many things that could be included as evidence, things that you may, in fact, never have thought about. And things that you just take for granted, emails or personal notes, as an example. People include those things. It speaks volumes. It really does. But again, you need something specific. It talks like, okay, this is teaching performance. I need you to talk about teaching. Or, if you're going to include an example of, a thank you or something like that a student sent, it talks about teaching, yeah, like I said, I could go into a lot of detail, but I won't. But it's a long, long list. And so you should get some really, really good ideas from this for all of the different performance areas, okay? So I think I'll stop there and find out if you have any remaining questions.
Paul,
Yes.
This is Paul Schleifer. Can I make a couple of comments?
Absolutely.
The first comment is for those of you who are still looking at going through this process, it looks like a whole lot of stuff, but for the most part, it's stuff that you're doing anyway. It's just a matter of keeping a record of all of these things. It's not an overwhelming task. Mm-hmm. And please don't be afraid of it. The other thing, and I'm looking that we have 26 participants right now, down from a high of I think 53 earlier in the day. And as I look through the participant list, I'm not seeing a lot of division chairs or deans. We as faculty need to encourage our division chairs and deans because they should be our first mentors in this process. If you were hired here at Southern Wesleyan, you were hired because a group of people thought, this is a person who will fit in at our school, will fit the mission, is dedicated to students, is dedicated to Christ and sharing that with their students. And we should be encouraging and mentoring our young faculty from the very beginning. And the truth is, if you're not the kind of person who should get tenure at SWU, you should know that within the first 2 or 3 years. The division chair should be on top of that. The dean should be on top of that early on. And you should be able to come to that understanding pretty early on. By the time you're coming to tenure, if you're doing your job, I'm not saying it should be pro forma, but I mean, heading down that road. So if you're working on this, if you're relatively new to SWU, go to your dean, go to your division chair and say, I'd really like you to help me with this process.
Yep.
Put it on their plate.
Here, here. Yeah, again, let me say, if these people are not involved in the process ahead of time, it's going to be hard for them to advocate for you. So I just really encourage you, to make sure that they know exactly what you're doing. And the portfolio is a really good way to share that. And as Paul said, a lot of people seem really intimidated by this process, but again, if you will just go ahead and get the portfolio and start filing things away, and linking stuff up and stuff like that, it's not bad. I mean, it really is not bad. Don, you gonna say something?
If you're having trouble with your dean or division chair, then let us know. Because as we're continuing to work on the handbook, we're trying to get the deans and the division chairs to understand what their role is. And I mean, there is the end of the year chat that we all must have, and there should be that should be the time for correction, for resetting your sites, or a kick in the pants or something like that. It shouldn't have to wait until you try to get to tenure. But the division chair should be hands-on in the process, or a mentor, a designated mentor. But that it should be part of the job of the division chair or dean to make sure that you're working on that. That could be part of your end of the year activities report, is what you're doing to be to move toward tenure.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and as far as the portfolio is concerned, in recommendation letters and like reviews and stuff like that, if somebody is not offering to write a letter or to, review your portfolio like a division chair or a dean, I mean, just really press them, and say, look, I need this recommendation, and this is what I need the recommendation to say. I mean, be specific, and then for the review, it seems like the most logical thing in the world that if I have somebody in my division or in my school or college or whatever who's going up for promotion or tenure, then I would want to see that portfolio. That seems like the most logical thing in the world. But if somebody's not asking about that, you've got to make the case. You've got to just say, look, I need you to look at this thing.
So I guess this is for Karen Lee. I know that Chad already gave me permission to look at his portfolio and help me and mentor me. And I don't know if he can be my mentor. I'll ask Ken about that. However, how do I get people to look at my portfolio? Because they're kind of private. Do I just ask Karen to share my portfolio with everybody that I want to show it to?
I'll defer that to Paul. I have not ever been asked that question.
Once you publish, then if CTE shares your portfolio with whoever, then they can see it.
Great, thank you.
Yep. It's, by the way, again, think about the portfolio as just like a Canvas course. It works exactly the same way. You have to publish it. And if you want somebody else to see it, other than your students, of course, then you're going to have to ask CTE to, allow them to see it, that kind of thing. So, okay.
And let me say this: we do not put individuals in without communicating with someone. So if you ask, I'm going to turn around and ask Paul Schatzberger, is it okay to put this person in? So it's a process like that. So if you, right now, everyone that's in this session, if you send me an email, I'll go on and do it. But I won't just randomly put people in without permissions.
Yep, sounds good. All right, anything else? All right, it's been a pleasure giving you the fire hose for an hour. And so if you have questions, any of the committee, Don's here, and who else is here? I'm looking at names.
I saw
Lee's
Steve.
here.
I saw Lee.
So please, let us know, especially if we're in your area. I mean, if we're in your discipline, especially, then, we're going to be able to talk a little bit more intelligently about evidence and things like that. But we're happy to work with you. That's fine. Okay. Well, I think I'm done, Karen.
All right. Well, you are my troopers. You made it through the entire day. Bravo, bravo, bravo. Thank you so much for your energy and participation in today. The site is open, our Zooming into Spring. So feel free to go in and participate in any of the trainings. If you need anything, reach out to me. I am currently working on advisement dashboards and making sure that all the advisement numbers are correct and your students are accurate in your dashboards and in your Canvas advising shell. So that's what I'm working on right now. And if there's anything else that we can do, just reach out. We're here.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Don. And thank you for a great day, Karen. This has been a very, very successful day for me. I only missed one today, but they were all excellent. Thank you.
Good. That's our prayer. That was our hope. We wanted that to be the end result. So that just
About you when you were gone, though.
Yeah, it was good. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you, Karen.
And it's not me, it's CTE, Scott and Jody. They've been behind the scenes working all day. The Faculty Development Committee, we've been working on putting a resource library together. And that's the reason why we're able to just do it like that. I've been working on this and I wanted us to be able to launch it in the spring. The Instructional Design Committee has been working collaboratively with faculty development, and we have been working hard all year. So this is the result of a lot of hands in the pot, just stirring and stirring. So I'm so pleased that we had such a great day. And I thank all of you for your participation.
Great.
So there's nothing else on the agenda. Kim Jedlicka, she is the faculty member, help me, Kim, my brain is shutting down. Faculty member of the year, Kim Jedlicka. And she is also the co-chair of the Faculty Development Committee. So I'd like to ask Kim, would you like to add anything else before we close down?
No, Karen, I just thank you for doing such a great job. We've worked together, Karen and I, on the staff development day/week, and I just appreciate Karen's hard work behind the scenes. She's done tons and tons and worked tirelessly to get this done. So, Karen, we appreciate you for helping pull this off. It was great and glad everything worked so well. We were a little bit nervous about it, but we're glad that it went off very well. So just happy about that. Thank you, Karen.
Okay, everyone, enjoy your summer. I guess we have one more thing. That's faculty meeting tomorrow. And then after that, Enjoy your summer. If you need me, CTE, Scott, Jody, or me, just reach out. We're here all summer. I'm not smiling about that. All right, well, we're done.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Karen. Glad it went well today.
Yes, 2 thumbs up.
Thanks for everything.
Oh, thank you. Jody.
Hey.
Hey.
I could actually come on and say, hey, now everyone's leaving.
I miss you so much.
I haven't seen you in 100 years.
I know. I mean, we talk, but we don't get to see each other.
I know, right?
Oh, I have withdrawal, department withdrawal. I miss you guys so much.
You don't have withdrawal because they're in the office.
Oh, is that Ella?
Sorry, that's Ella. She's mad because she didn't get enough to eat.
Oh,
Like a bottomless pit. I just wanted to say hey.
oh, give my hugs to my girls.
Karen, how you feel?
Jody, we'll touch base later on in the week, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.